I got my elbows in coffee. Maybe I'll start to tan my skin. Maybe my skin will get a little bit tan. I'll be able to get a role out here in Los Angeles. Tough time out here for a white guy. Tough time out here for a white guy. Good to be here this morning. Thank you guys for joining me. On this past weekend, what happened this past weekend? I'll tell you this, dude. What happened this past week is I was doing some manscaping last week. I had an audition. Going in to audition for a film, for a lead role. And I decided to do a little manscaping because I'm the kind of guy who I'm good. I'll be on task a little bit. And then I'll get to, I'll have 40 minutes to get where I'm going. I'll jump in the shower, be out in 7 minutes, but then I'll be standing there in front of the mirror. And instead of just getting ready, I'll see sometimes you see either on your eyebrows or around your crotch, you see like a long hair, one of them long extraneous hairs, It's kind of like if you've ever seen a picture of like a private school basketball team in like the 6th grade. It's all white kids, and you have that one tall, long black kid that's on the team. And that's like that hair you will see. You'll see just that one one of these is not like the others, And not in color. I'm just talking about in length. And so I saw one of those. I was like, oh, I'm going to clip this thing up. Daddy gets a pair of organized sharp swords here, scissors, and I'm going to clip this thing down. I'm going to take control. I'm going to show this young follicle down here by my wiener and everything who's boss. And I clipped it, and I just kind of wasn't paying attention, I guess, enough, and I clipped a little bit, and it's going to sound vulgar, and it's not going to get any more graphic than this, but I clipped into my scrotum, into my scrot. And they do call it scrot, and I've played it in Scrabble before as scrot. And I clipped into my scrotum with these, little clippers, these scissors. And man, you don't think you have a lot. You kind of don't know what's in your scrotum. Let's be honest. A lot of times, people say, oh, my nuts, but there's a lot of stuff going on in there. If you really ever spend some time with your scrotum, and a lot of you guys probably don't. A lot of you guys are just running around, just kind of not 100% sure what's in your nut bag. I don't do that. I'm not like that. I know what's in my nutsack. You got the kind of the veinage, a little bit of those kind of, feels like your nuts each are wearing these kind of soft kind of hats. You got some nut fat, some fat around your nuts, light kind of thing of fat around each nut. And you got some other stuff in there. I think you got the vas deferens, whatever those are. That could also be a British rock band, but anyway, you also have a good bit of you got some blood in there, and this thing started. It was pretty much leaking out, and I had to be at this audition. And I'm not going to get real graphic, and I'm sorry I have out of the gate, but I just have to tell you what happened. So I am alarmed. I put a napkin on it, hard press that napkin, and I got a chip clip. Those chip clips you use to close up a bag of chips. Sometimes you get some chips. You get your hand in a bag of chips. You open a bag of chips. You don't want them all. Now, some people open a big bag of chips, eat them all, and don't realize that they even have chip clips in the world, that chip clips exist. But if you're still doing that, I got to tell you something, that they have a chip clip. And that's for if you don't want to eat an entire big bag of chips, because you shouldn't. Those days are long gone, I feel like, health-wise. So I hit this chip clip, put it basically on my scrot with this napkin, and I hightailed it out to the audition, got into the audition, and I had to tell him right when I got there. I was running late, I'm sweating, I'm nervous. I had to tell him, because first of all, I go in there, I'm worried that if any kind of red coloring starts to show up on my pants, if I'm, kind of having a little bit of, I don't want to be graphic here, but if I'm having a little bit of some iron drip, if you will, because the blood has iron in it, if I'm, sprinkling platelets out of my pants a little, that they are going to get scared, or they're going to think that I have a menstrual cycle, which is okay. I guess these days it's okay if a man has a menstrual cycle. I mean, hell, I know some real bitches out there. I know some fellas that's really running around as some real biatches, especially out here in Los Angeles. But but I don't think to the point where they expect a man to just be surprising people with this, a surprise menstrual cycle. So anyhow, I had the chip clip on, did the audition, and that was a hectic day. So then I was laid up. I was laid up for about 2 days, and I started getting depressed. And when you can't be active, depression, that's when it finds you. Because depression is like a, it's kind of like it's a bit like I want to say a mosquito. Because mosquitoes, they kind of hang around, they mill around. But then when you don't expect it, that's when a mosquito come and get you. What is that? Oh, that's a mosquito. And that's when they come and get you when you don't expect it. What is that? Oh, that's a mosquito. Were you expecting it? No, I wasn't. And that's when mosquitoes come get you. And that's how depression is, man. And if I lay around, I get too stagnant. That's when depression starts for me. And I started getting depressed, man. For a whole day, I laid in bed, tending to my bag, my nutsack, and making sure everything was, cavalier down there. And it was alarming, man. That is an alarming time because that's where your body is holding your future. Your next level, the next level of your reincarnate is housed in that bag. So some people think you're walking around with your nuts. No, you're walking around with your family, with your son, with your daughter, twins maybe, or transgender person. All of that is in your nuts. I mean, it's striking to believe, but that's all in your nuts right now. I mean, it's crazy to think that right now, if your nuts make probably, and this is a fact, I think your nuts make 200 million sperm a day. You got to figure 6 million of those sperm are probably transgender. So everyone right now, every man running around has probably about 6 million transgender sperm right now between their legs. 6 million TGs right between their legs right now. So it's just kind of interesting to think about it that way. But yeah, man, I had to tend to myself. I had to put salve on them. I had a couple cans of good salve in there. And I just started putting that salve on and then put some gauze. And I put a sock around my bag. And I just socked up my bag. And you had to take care of yourself like that. It was really old school, kind of. I had to take care of my body, because that's my future. That's my future. But I'm wearing a golf shirt. I have on a golf shirt today. If you're on the YouTube, you can see it. I have a golf shirt on. I don't play a lot of golf. I think I could, though. I see men play it. I see sometimes I've been invited to some of these fancier get-togethers where these fellows are out there doing golf. And it's everybody dresses a little bit. It almost everybody dresses like they're adults that are going to maybe be looking for Easter eggs. And everybody's like trying to be friendly and have beers and stuff, but also everybody's thinking about maybe banging each other's wives or making love to each other's wives. But it looks fun sometimes. I've played a few games. Almost killed a famous golf designer, a famous golf course designer one time. What was his name? Die? I thought his last name was Die. And that's not a joke. I thought his last name was actually Die. Anyhow, so I got a little depressed, man. I got depressed because I laid in bed. I started watching episodes of Disappeared. When I get depressed, I start to notice, what do I do? Because then I can tell if I'm depressed. Sometimes I can't even tell. So what do I do when I'm depressed? I watch shows about disappeared people that are missing. And Disappeared is a show where in the beginning somebody's missing, and at the end, somebody's still missing. Knock, knock. Who's there? Not this person. Somebody's still missing. And that's, and I guess there's something in that at least I know where I am, At least I'm better off than this person that is missing. At least I know where I am, and that makes me feel pretty good, I guess. At least it's one thing at that low level of where I'm feeling makes me feel still kind of okay. So, what else, man? What else, dude? Yeah, I just had, I got a little bummed out. What else is going on in the news? North Korea. People talking about North Korea. Here's what I have to say about North Korea. First of all, bring it on. If you want some of it, we got some of it. Okay? Oh, what's this over here? This is some of it. And if you want some of it, we got some of it. Because here's the thing. We've already beaten you guys before. Okay? I can hit up about 720 senior citizen facilities. And I got about probably thousands and hundreds of thousands of senior men in there who would happily go round two. okay, who were out there in the Korean War, who were out there getting dirty under Mr. Truman, who are not afraid to get back out in the sand, all right? I got about probably 725,000 senior citizens about ready to put guns on their walkers and sacrifice themselves and get out there and go at it one more time. So I'm sorry to get fired up, but I'm also tired of being scared about North Korea. North Korea is not going to do anything to America, or I don't think to anyone, because they have everything to lose. They're happy right now. They're North Korea. Nobody knows what they're doing. They're up there playing games, you know. I read an article one time that they were doing human whack-a-mole. That the big, the Pied Piper up there, Kim Jong-un, is doing he does human whack-a-mole. We had a whack-a-mole thing built. He'll have human Koreans dress up in mole outfits, scoot around, pop up out of the holes, and he hits them with a big deal, you know? A big mallet. Is that fucked up? Yeah, it is, dude. Is that also awesome as fuck? Yes, it is as well. Two things. You know? But I'm not scared of North Korea. I'm not scared of North Korea, dude. But I've had a week, man. I've had a weekend. You know, I'm going through some emotional stuff. You know, I had to meet up with the man this week in the park to talk with him. You know, I'm in therapy. Okay, I'll say it. I'm in therapy. I'm not ashamed about being in therapy. I'm trying to get to the bottom of my brain. Some of y'all sitting out here milling around the top of your brain like little brain babies. Well, guess what? I'm a brain daddy. I'm down in the bottom of my brain looking for myself. So, I met up with an old man in a park this weekend. You know? And that's where I'm at. But good to be here. Happy Labor Day to you guys. We didn't come out with the Patreon. People ask about Patreon. We didn't come out with it last week. And I know I've told you that I would. But because of the donations in Houston, I just felt that it wasn't right. So we'll do it. We're going to try to get it up tonight or tomorrow. So it'll be out this week. And it'll be out when you want to go support Patreon and support this past weekend, because I'm going to get this podcast to better and better levels. We're building the studio. We're going to have guests soon. We're going to try some residencies with co-hosts, sidekicks. So we're open to new things. It's just it's a slow build. A lot of things were slow builds. You know, think about something that was a fast build. Where is it now? Probably in a fast build graveyard. Thank you. Let's hit the news. We did North Korea. Fuck them. Fuck North Korea, dude. I'll say that. I'm sure there's some good people over there. I'm not denying the people. But you know what I'm saying? When one team plays another team, I'm not thinking about the players. I'm thinking about the teams. And if they wanna talk shop, then welcome to Ace Hardware, baby. That's the shop I'm talking. Hardware. What else? A guy died in Burning Man. A guy got high, was lifted up. You know what I'm saying? Cooking his own spirit grits on them drugs and on them dopes. And ran into a fire. And you know what? At first, I was like, fuck, only one guy? Because part of me is like, let's roast half the squad up there, you know? Half the squad of these freaking fake miracle Muppets out there on that dust, looking for themselves. You want to find yourself, get out in your dirt, and stay off the dust. And I'm sorry, I know I'm getting fired up this weekend, but I'm fired up, man. I'm fired up on this Monday. A guy died in Burning Man. They said he was on acid and MDMA, and he ran into the fire. And you know what, man? I've been on acid, okay? I did a bunch of acid one time and stole a bunch of boat radios and tried to install them in regular vehicles. Stupid plan. What else? Did some acid, cooked a pizza in a dryer one time. I used to know how long it took. It was a medium, that's all I remember. But it works, but it does take a while. Got naked in my friend's yard. His mom caught me out there honking my car horn. to a song that was on the radio. So I've made some poor choices on acid, but this guy ran into a fire. But I'll say this, when you're on drugs, sometimes you do feel closer to a higher power. And maybe that's not a bad way to go. You know, a lot of times we have old people or young people or whoever that when they're dying, when they're heading to another realm, when they're hopping worlds, if they believe in a higher power, if they believe in a warp zone, you know, if they believe in heaven, then they're fired up. You know, they're going there. But why not have them be on drugs? If you're on drugs and you already are, you're going to be keyed up when you get there. Or do you think that the natural high of that experience of going to that another world is a high enough, and that maybe the drugs would be scary? I don't know. But heck, I could almost, you know, a couple hits of mush, you know, couple, you know, cans of, or however they serve them, cans of mushrooms and psychedelics, and a couple hits of acid. And I've had some bad experience with acid, and I'm not ashamed of my times. You know, I remember one time we did a bunch of acid with this girl, and some people locked her in a room and was dripping hot water on her. Warm water, not hot water, warm water. You know, it wasn't this violent thing. It was more like this sort of kind of Lord of the Flies-ish kind of romantic sort of Edgar Allan Poe, you know, just children being under dope, you know, children with their brains under the pressures and under the, you know, the tricky fixins of dope. You know, my buddy slid a hit of acid into a girl's vagina one time. Vagipping, they used to call it. And that's just tripping via vagina. When you know, lock a girl's vagina up with a hit of acid, and, you know, that way she'd kind of relax a little and party a little bit, you know, and see spirits with her eyeballs, you know. That way she could close her eyes and still be watching television, you know, surfing her own brain channels. And sometimes that's the beauty about some of those drugs. But I wonder if the man could feel the fire. I wonder if he was so high on the drugs that did the pain. Well, you know, I just wonder how much did that change his receptors, what was coming in on that pain. You know, was he on the pain, were there surfers on those pain waves? Or was it just comfortable water? I'm just wondering how that came in on him. You know? And he's charred up. You know, they said he took him to the hospital, he almost lived. But maybe that's a thing, you know, high dying. Get somebody high as fuck and then pull the plug on them. I wouldn't be surprised if that becomes a new thing. You know? I can't believe that that cremation and burial are the only two options for when you die. What? Sounds like the worst restaurant ever. Only two ways to cook it? I want to be grilled, brother. Yeah, you heard about Alan? Yeah. They sauteed him. Yeah, they sauteed him over at Heavenly Pastures. I want to be all gratin. How about that? Oh, Daddy's showing up in the next realm with cheesy patates. That's how I want to die. Stuffed. I want to be bacon stuffed. You show up at my funeral, boy. I got 6 hits of bacon flying out of my beak. Maybe a couple olives. Like, damn. Theo knows how to go to heaven. With some flavor. Don't embalm me with damn embalming fluid. Throw something fancy inside of me. That Yoo-hoo. Remember Yoo-hoo? Chocolate Soldier? Put a beverage inside of me. You know, something that means something. I'm just sick of these options. Let's expand our minds. I'm sick of these options, you know. You can only go to heaven if you got, you can only go to heaven if you got embalming fluid or if you've been cremated. I don't want to be cremated. All right? Skewer. I want to be on a skewer with an apple in my mouth. Let's evolve, guys. We should evolve in all types of ways. You know? So, just a lot on me, man. But I could just, I went to a funeral today. You know, I guess to be honest with you guys, I went to a funeral. A friend of mine, and not like a best friend, but certainly a friend. Or a guy really, a friend. His father passed away, so I went to the funeral. And I wasn't sure at first if I should go. But then I was glad that I went. I think it's hard to know sometimes. And I've always had a tough time. I've had an awkward gauge in my own life, socially awkward, of knowing what things to show up at and for whom. Like I used to go to christenings for people I barely knew, when they had family christenings and stuff in their family. I remember being in the early 2000s, being in some people's family photos that I'd only met like one time at a bank. And then there I am, at the end of this picture when their baby's getting christened and just some awkward shit like that. So you got to be careful, when you don't know events to show up at. But it was touching, man. It was touching to see people share their love and their feelings. My buddy talked about his dad, and it was a surprise. It was just, his dad wasn't well, but it was a surprise death. And honestly, like, it brought back feelings of my own when my own father had passed. And I know I'm not trying to get dour on you, but, it just brought back some feelings, being young and just what it's like when somebody leaves. And I just know that I would have probably felt a lot more excited if I had known that my father was char-grilled or blackened, or caramelized, than to know that they just cooked him down and put him into an urn. And you know that. I also want to say, I don't like white supremacists. I do not like them. I do not like them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I also do not like black supremacists. I do not like Asian supremacists. I do not like people that only play Street Fighter and no other game. Extremism. We got to shut it down. I've become kind of a little bit overwhelmed with how people just... I'm just sick of how everybody has to be right. Everybody, you can't, there's no other way. It's ridiculous to have to be right. Everybody cannot be right. Think about that. It's impossible. So why some people still think that that's realistic, that it's their way or the highway. Everybody's got to give. Everybody's got to fold. Everybody's got to show a couple of their cards, man. It's just beyond me. But I had quite a weekend, man. I had quite a week of, thinking about life, cutting into my own ball sack. A lot of men never go inside their own balls. Not this guy. A lot of men, don't want to be out at funerals. I went out there, showed up, did it. So what else, guys? What else can I tell you guys about right now? Still a lot of love out to the people in Houston. I know that's a tough thing going on. The NFL is back. I'm excited about that. Feminism, sorry, but once again, we're going to have to ask you ladies to step aside while we play fantasy football. I'm so excited about football, man. I'm so excited about it. I'm in 2 leagues. I got one more draft coming up. I'm excited. And people are like, what players are you going to get out? David Johnson, that's my go-to guy. And if I could have anybody else on any team, it would be Michael Thomas for the New Orleans Saints. But yeah, I guess it's just like a testy time, man. I've had a lot on my mind, a lot on my heart. And it's a crazy week. I've been in therapy. People are talking about global warming. It's so hot right now in LA that dude, people are sweating. This girl the other night, out of the blue, she's like, hey, touch my leg. Oh, sweating. Like that time I bought a bunch of that Canadian Viagra's. And all they did was make my legs and ankles sweat. Made my legs swell up. I don't think I got an erection, but geez Christ. My leg was just one long thigh. From the toes to the hip. No knee, no ankle. Just sweating. I mean, it was unbelievable. I think it just made you retain salt in your legs. Yeah. Just hot, man. Hot as hell. People talking about global warming. Scary. People think it's the end of the world. I think Mother Nature's gonna come and beat somebody's ass. I believe it. Mother Nature's gonna come and beat somebody's ass. And I hope she takes out a few of these news networks. That's what I hope. Because these people are just ruining shit. My day would be a lot better if there weren't some news network in the distance yelling about how horrible everything is. But when I look around, people are doing okay. And it would just be nice sometimes if we could focus on the fact that we are doing well, that I got food in my mouth, and we can move onward. All right, let's take a couple of calls, man. I'm going to tell you guys, I'm headed to Austin this weekend. I will be at the Cap City Comedy Club. You can come and see me and love me or hate me. And that is this Wednesday through Saturday. And then the following weekend, September 14th through 17th, I'll be at Hilarities in Cleveland. And then I'll be at Stand Up Live in Huntsville, and that is November 16th through the 19th. Oh, and I got to tell you this, good news. The movie that I clipped my nuts and then went in an audition for, they offered me the part. So that's pretty exciting, But we'll see. We'll see. Sometimes those things, you never know what's going to happen in the universe out here. Things go to fruition. But, it just shows you, man, when you cut into your own balls, you still get out there and do your work. And happy Labor Day. Let me tell you about a couple jobs I've had. That's what I wanted to tell you guys. Hold the line 1 second. I got to plug in my computer. Hold on. Oh. All right, I'm back. I'm BACK. A couple of jobs that I had. I want to tell you about this. Happy Labor Day. I'll say that, and I want to tell you briefly about a couple of jobs that I had. So one of my earliest jobs was working at a pizza parlor called BJ's. And now everybody knows BJ's means blow jobs. But this place just meant BJ's. And they had some cards on there, and that meant blackjack. So I'm guessing that that's what the B and the J stood for, blackjacks. And I was a pizza maker and cleaner, basically. Everything, bullshit work. I was the lowest guy on the totem pole, used to make pizzas. Now, one of the assistant managers was a born-again Christian. He was born and reborn and unborn and overborn, double-born. I mean, just a little zygote for Christ by the end of it all. And this beautiful creature didn't know anything about pop culture, and he used to wear Garfield t-shirts all the time. And what we would do is me and this other dude who was on methamphetamines, and this other dude, my coworker, he would always have his pizzas rolled faster than me, right? He'd have his pizza done, in 2 seconds, and they'd be like, you need to, the manager would call me in the office. He's like, you need to do your pizza as fast as this guy. And I'm like, well, this guy is on drugs, and the money you're paying me, I can't afford the drugs that he's on. So unless you raise my pay, I'm not going to be able to do drugs and compete and be competitive here in the pizza workplace. So, and this dude, like, I would barely have my dough rolled out, and he would have his folded into like a swan. Like this dude was damn, Vincent Van Gogh on that yeast, on that flowering yeast. But it was captivating to be in that environment, and I liked this job. It was probably my first job in a real business. And this is post-hamps. This is after I sold hamsters and guinea pigs. And this is after I cleaned out wishing wells. And this is after I broke into a man's house and just stole stuff from him one time. And it's not really a job, but you do end up with, some money and some goods. And you don't, and so it's kind of like a job. But anyhow, so we would make up fake pizza orders for this born-again Christian assistant manager on Sunday. And we would have orders for like Danny Glover. And he would take them out into the middle. He would take the orders out there, 5 or 6 pizzas for Danny Glover out on Old Man River, Old Military Road or something. He would go out there, take the pizzas, come back an hour later. And there was no wrong address, no Danny Glover. And then we would eat the pizzas. And while he was gone, we would drink. And we would deep fry everything in the deep fryer and eat it. And that was a really good time. That was one of the best times that I had over there doing that kind of work. I also used to work at a insurance company where my job was to send documents. My job was to send paper products to other insurance companies. We ran a supply room that supplied other smaller insurance companies with documents they needed to carry out business and big business. So I would mail out these documents. Well, one time I went in there on a bunch of mushrooms and I actually dated one of the lady's daughters that worked in there, beautiful lady named Miss Trudy. And I used to date her daughter, sweet gal. And one time I ate a bunch of mushrooms in there took my clothes off in the mailroom, dude, and they had a door so I could be in there by myself. I'm in there mailing, you know, putting stickers on stuff, writing addresses, stamps, doing mail. What's this? Mail. Where's that go? Oh, in the mail. You know, handling business, mail business. And the thing that happened was this. I got geeked out on some mushrooms and mailed all of my clothing to one of the smaller insurance companies. So then I'm in this mailroom, had to literally make myself some clothes. Even though I just could have opened this box, it was coming up on time when the mail had to be due. So I was embarrassed. Like, you know, if I open this box, it's going to look, you know, they're going to come in here and they're going to be like, what the hell's going on? So I made myself a clothing out of paper. Made myself some paper, basically a skirt, and not a shirt, but kind of like a shirt. And then I've got all the mail products ready, waited for the mail dude to come, signed them off to him, mailed my clothes to some insurance company, never saw him again. And then I lost my job probably about 6 weeks later. But yeah, you know, it's Labor Day, and we've all had some type of laborious time, and that's something I want you to call in and hit the hotline for next week, is hit the hotline and let me know about a job that you had, man. Let me know about something that on this past Labor Day that you were celebrating not working anymore. One other job I had, I'll tell you real quick, I used to work on this farm, and I had to get, every year they would cut the grain, the corn, they would cut the corn, and some of these things that they would store it in over the winter, the snakes would get in there and hide in there because it was kind of warm. It was out of the elements. So then at the beginning of the new farming season, I had to get in there and clean these things out and get the snakes out. And there were snakes and rats. And dude, imagine somebody just put you in the middle of a big, long metal container and said, all right, I'll be back in a few hours. There are rats and there are snakes in here and you need to get them out. And people like Game of Thrones. Well, I mean, this was violent, dude. And you'd be in there with a shovel, or sometimes I'd take the wrong tool in there. One time I was in there with a pickaxe all day fighting these animals, right? Well, guess what? Put a couple of holes in the bottom of this big holder. So, I mean, definitely cost those guys probably most of the money I made that year by using a pickaxe to try and battle mice and snakes. So yeah, some poor choices in my work days, but you know what? That's God's plan for me. That's what I'm going to say. What else? All right, let's get to some calls, man. Let's take a few calls right here. I appreciate you guys for hitting the hotline. You know, it's good stuff, and I'm happy that you guys are hitting it. The number is 985-664-9503. Let's take this call right here.
Ooh, Theo Bond.
Yep.
Finally got you on the hotline here. I'm calling down here from Nashville, Tennessee.
Ooh, Nashville. Beautiful. Thank you for calling, buddy.
There's a tornado warning out right now. The weather's looking kind of rough. But, you know, the weather's kind of bad down there in Houston town. We're praying for all them people down there as well. So I just want to let you know you want to raise some money for this disaster. Well, I'm here to tell you, buddy, next time you're in Nashville, Tennessee, or I heard you're going to be in Huntsville. I
will be in Huntsville, dude. And I hope this dude isn't a pedophile because I am an adult. So I hope you don't think I'm a child because I'm off his books just at my age alone. Onward, buddy.
You, me, on the basketball court, one-on-one. And I guarantee I will whip your ass in that basketball game.
Oh, you and me one-on-one. This guy sounds like Matthew McConaughey homeless, doesn't he? You and me one-on-one on the basketball court. Okay, I could do this maybe. We have to think about what the wage is. And I guess the money will make it a proceed that goes to some charity down there. Onward?
You can film it. You can put it on Periscope, Facebook, all that bullshit. Raise some money for it. We'll raise a little money.
Okay. All right, man. I accept that challenge. Whenever I come down to Huntsville, we'll get into that. I appreciate that, man. That's good thinking. And a lot of people are doing great things. I mean, I spoke to a buddy of mine in Houston the other day, and he said that that he was going back to work, and people in his area were going back to work. That locally that he was unable to even go volunteer when he and his friends had went and signed up because all the shifts were full. That they weren't accepting any more water, they weren't accepting any more diapers. And I know that was just the other day, but it's just amazing to see how people are helping out. And I think that that's one thing that's nice to see in the wake of all of this, that human beings, when they get a chance to be human, they're choosing to do that. And that's not something that happens on the internet. That's not something that's social media. There's some stuff out there. Yes, they're running the charities through social media and stuff like that. But the hand-on-hand help, the heart-to-heart help, that's happening in the streets. And that's what's amazing to see. And that's what humanity is. We've just become these online creatures where we're not human online. Why? Because we're not. Because you're not even a human then. You're electronic. There's something else going on. But it's amazing to see that when humans get a chance to be human, especially in a city that is diverse like Houston. Houston's got some diversity. That people are helping each other out and people are working together. And it's great to see it happen in Texas too. A state where people, are always like, oh, Texas, they're gun-toting, Republican, and they get this bad rap, I feel like, from a lot of people. Well, guess what? Texas is showing America just how good people can be. And I know there's a few bad eggs down there, but you know what? Overall, people aren't pulling up to each other when they're drowning in these waters and asking them who they voted for. And then you still have these reporters that show up down there and like, well, are you happy with how Trump, do you think, get that shit out of here. Why go down and just make misery? I don't understand it. I will never understand it. Oh, if the aliens come here, dude, and they're trying to fuck everybody, I hope they start with half of these news networks. Or most of them, man. It's just... We're better than that. We're better than they make us out to be. But I'll take that challenge, brother. We'll do something. Hit me up on social media or hit the hotline. Again, let me know a little bit more information, and we'll throw it down there, dude. Me versus Matthew McConaughey. I don't know what to call him, but he got that wild lisp, dude. He got that crack daddy lisp, and I love it. And and I'll even watch you smoke a little bit, a couple grams if you're trying to ball out after the game, dude, to celebrate your loss. We'll raise a little money. All right, let's get to some calls, man. Let's take a few calls right here.
What's up, Theo? This is Melissa. I love the show. I've been watching you since the MTV days.
Hey, Melissa. Thank you for calling.
My question is, well, it's a problem. I'm antisocial, judgmental of people. As soon as I meet them, I start picking them apart in my head, and I don't like anything about them. This would normally not be much of a problem, but I'm a blogger, so...
Okay, so she's a blogger and she's judgmental. Sounds like you should have a job then. That's what's onward.
I need to be social for my career. I do TV spots sometimes, and you could tell when you see me on there how much I just despise everybody around me. The only people I seem to like are like old ladies and comedians, and neither of those are in my target audience. So I was hoping you can give me some advice on how to get past that and be a little more social and interested, actually, in meeting people and talking to them.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you calling. I try to be curious. That's what I try to do when I get really judgmental. And look, we're all judgmental. And I'm stereotypical. And sometimes I was talking to a buddy the other night. He's telling me not to be so stereotypical. But I'm like, I think that's a survival skill. At a certain point, you got to make some choices. You got to group people together. And every now and then somebody will surprise you. But sometimes, I feel like 8 out of 10 times people won't. So I get stereotypical, but I think we all battle with it, being judgmental. It's so easy. It's natural. I think it's natural for us to be that way. But how to get out of it, I say try and be curious. Instead of like, fuck, listen, I'm leaving. Like sometimes I'll be listening to somebody and my brain will start to be like, man, I've heard this a million times. Why am I even listening to this fucking person? But instead, I'll try and just be like, well, maybe this person will say something different. Maybe this will be different this time. Or maybe this person needs me to listen to them. You know, I think about trying to listen. I think about trying to be curious instead of being judgmental. Be curious. If you just stay curious, like, oh, well, I wonder what they're going to say. Maybe they'll tell me where there's a buried treasure, you know? Maybe they'll tell me that they have a rare species of bats. Or maybe they'll tell me that they, you know, that they are having babies and never had sex. You know, maybe somebody will have a secret for you. So that's what I say. Just try and stay curious, and that sometimes can get you out of that judgment. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard, especially because sometimes we just think we're better. We think we know it all, you know. But good luck. Good luck with it. You know, I think you can beat it. It's obviously you're aware of it, and that's really the first step. You know, so just try and stay curious. I think that'll help you stay interested. And good luck with your job. You sound like fuck. I'd read something you wrote, I think. You know, I mean, I can't really think about your writing through your talking, but shit, if you just did some dang graffiti. I used to read graffiti, you know, and some of it was pretty damn educational. A lot of it was just about people, you know, fucking mostly. Anyhow, onward.
Yo, what's up, Theo? This is Brian from Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, Brian. Let's go.
I have a question for you. I really need some advice. Do you ever talk shit on someone and texted it to that person when it was meant to go to another person? Basically, I talked shit on my stepmom, and I meant to send it to my brother, but it went to my stepmom, and she got really pissed.
Wow. Oh! Dude, I feel for you right when you say that, Brian. He talked shit on his stepmom. Instead of texting it to his brother, he texted it to his stepmom. Oh, and that's such a crucial position, too, because, oh, you got to see here. It's just, man, that's heavy, bro. Have I ever done that? I'll tell you really quickly. Yes, I have. I met a girl who was like my dream girl, you know? And I mean, of course, I fantasized that. I romanticized it. I didn't even know her. But I wanted to know her. And I started like putting it out there like, oh, I want to know her, I want to know her, I want to know her. And I'd see her a few weeks in a row, and I finally got her phone number. Well, that same day, some like skis had hit me up, I think on Snapchat, and was sending me like nudes and stuff, you know, or something, or saying saying naughty stuff to me. So I gave that girl on Snapchat my number, you know. I mean, there's no lie that I suffer from, you know, temptation and getting caught up in pornography and some of the DAs, baby, the dark arts. So I gave that girl my number. Well, then I also that same day got the number of the girl that I really thought was a special chick. So later that night, and right whenever I got the special girl's number, I texted her and I said, hey, it's Theo. And she didn't text me back immediately or anything. That's fine. Well, later that night, I get a text, and it says, I'm going to put you in my phone. That's what the text said, right? And I thought it was from this girl on Snapchat, this straight, you know, snap skeezy that I'd just given my number to. So I wrote back like, oh, well, you can put me anywhere you want, right? So then the girl writes back, oh, really? This is interesting. Tell me more, right? And so I start just turning into a straight pervert. Well, about two texts later from each of us, I realized that this is the girl that I had met that I really liked, and that I had texted her. She had just written back to me, you know, a few hours later, I'm going to put you in my phone. And I just didn't correlate it in my mind. I was just maybe perved out or something. I don't know. And man, that hurt so much, because now I'm like already such a creep to this girl that I just met that I really liked. But it ended up working out where I got to, you know, I started to get to know that girl, and she gave me a second chance. So that was really beautiful. But let's hear the rest of your story. I'm sorry for rambling.
And to make matters worse, it was my birthday, and I said maybe I should go. They said no, and I opened my birthday presents in silence. And I also ate the birthday cake in silence, total silence. So now my dad is saying it's going to take some time. And I don't know really where to go from here. So if you have any advice, contact him first.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out, man. I just appreciate you sharing this story, man. This is a real story, and I love it. And I can feel your layers of pain there because you're probably upset. You know, and we say things when we're upset that, you know, we exaggerate. And your stepmom read this stuff, and she's already an uphill battle as a stepmom, and she's probably not that bad of a stepmom. I have no idea, but step parenting seems like straight hell. I mean, step parenting is basically just an invite to probably be sued by a kid. And here she is working her butt, you know, whatever. But obviously they gave you gifts and they gave you this cake and you're sitting there in silence, bro. Dude, that silent cake. You was eating that silent cake. And what's that thing where they say you have to eat your, what's it? It's like an old saying. You got to eat your thumb. You got to eat your, I don't know what it is, dude. But I got no advice, man. Your dad's right. It's going to take time. You know, you got busted, dude. You got busted being a straight, regular person. And sometimes we get busted being a regular person, man. Just being human. That's what you got busted being. You got busted being honest. You got busted being human. Now, if there's some real stuff behind some of those texts you sent, now this might be a good opportunity to address some of those things with her. You know, but outside of that, if you're just like, you know, damn, Martha's got the saggiest tits in town, then that shit ain't gonna play well, dog. You know? Wow, I can just picture somebody sitting there eating that silent cake, just hearing their mouth hit it. And it probably, you couldn't even enjoy it because of how much you had ruined Martha's day or whatever her name is, Margaret. Or not, you didn't even tell me her name. It could be a Nadia. She could be Spanish. But wow, bro. Look, dude, things are happening, man. You know, it could be global warming. Maybe that's why you're screwing up like that and texting the wrong people. But we've all been there. You know, we've all been there, and happy Labor Day to you, dude, because that sounds like a real labor of love right there. And that's maybe something that everybody's going through is some of these labors of love, you know? I think that's something that everybody's having to deal with here and there. It's just, you know, it's hard. Being in love is hard. Staying in love is hard. Figuring it out. Fighting to stay in love. Fighting to keep these relationships. To not fuck it up. You know, to keep communication open. This shit is hell, dude. And the skies are opening up, dude. And Mother Nature is about to bust nuts. That's what I'm thinking. But well, you know what, dude? What the hell do I know? You know? I'll tell you this last thing about Labor Day, and then I'm going to get out of here. I got a set at the Comedy Store in 21 minutes. But I'll tell you this, man. When I got laid off from that pizza joint, here's how I got laid off. So they had me and this other dude, they had another guy that worked up there that was mentally challenged. And he was, I don't know what he had. He had something that they don't even have anymore. I don't even know what it was. And he was also, his parents were, both of them were kind of like wiggers, you know? And I use the term wigger. I don't mean it in a racially offensive way. But you know what I'm talking about. They were wiggers. And his parents would dress him up would wig him up. You know, they had his ears pierced, and they had him in all these Detroit Pistons shit. And he was mentally challenged, you know? And I've always had a special spot in my heart for the mentally challenged because I've always felt a little bit mentally challenged, you know, at my core, or that I just beat it. You know, I've always felt that I just beat a couple of diseases, you know, or a couple of mental challenges. Just beat them, you know. I didn't get first place. I didn't get the blue ribbon and get them, but I got second place, runner up to a lot of mental challenges. But anyhow, me and him would do these contests where we would put our head under the dishwater for as long as we could. And the dishwater was dirty, and you'd hold your head down there for as long as you could to try and be the champ. And the champ was whoever held their head under the dishwater the longest. So I remember putting my head under that dishwater one time, and he'd just done about, I think, 28 seconds. And I would let him cheat a little bit because the guy is mentally challenged. You know, I don't even know if he could swim. I don't even know what his aquatic skills are. You know, as an adult or a man. I don't even know how old he was. He could have been anywhere from 16 to probably 28. He had a mustache, and then he had like another mustache kind of on one of his cheeks. He was, you know, a lot of his growth and everything was awry. Wasn't natural patterns. He wasn't He wasn't showing a lot of natural hair patterns. But anyhow, so I put my head under that dishwater, dude, and I'm down there, bro. And you can feel the oil. Like, a lot of times you come up and you'd have a ring of that dirty dishwater, that oil and the grease from it, from the pizza pans, would just be around your neck, And a lot of times we would do this when the boss was next door at the pool hall drinking. So I have my head down there and I'm just catching time, brother. I mean, I'm putting in time, baby, Like, I'm just, I'm doing a couple life sentences under this water. And I think I'm up near a minute and I pull my head out and I'm just like, I'm the champ, And the boss was right there and he fired me. So, I guess I don't even know what the moral of the story is, and I don't think it matters. But bottom line is sometimes the champ gets fired. Sometimes the champ gets caught. Sometimes you're the champ and you get busted. And that's what's happening to people. That's what's happening to this dude getting busted texting his mother, That's what's happening to the gal that's judgmental. She's thinking she's the champ. But now she's realizing that she's coming in second place because she's being so judgmental. That's what's going to happen to this dude that wants to challenge me on that basketball court for the charity hustle. He's going to be second place. He's going to realize that he got beat by someone who barely beat Down syndrome and other diseases and probably some other popular afflictions, the autism and all of that. You got people wanting to be the champ and coming in second place. You got a man that ran right into a fire out there at Burning Man. Ran right into a fire trying to be the champ. And now he came in second place. But I bet, hopefully he went to heaven, And hopefully at his funeral they'll fill him with bacon. And they'll put some julienne potatoes around his body in that casket. Maybe some guac that feels authentic, that feels like it's not produced. And that's why I just don't need the Emmys this year for me. I do miss some of those old days of those crazy award shows though. And maybe I need to get back into them, but no Emmys for me right now. I feel like I'd rather watch something else. I just got back from Cleveland, and their baseball team had won 21 straight games when I rolled into town. The Cleveland Indians, named after, I'm guessing, Native Americans. And while I was there, they lost. So, sorry, Cleveland, but I had a good time. I had a great time there, actually. Spent some just quality time with some locals, dude. Saw somebody get maced. It was started like a fun thing. A couple of kind of thicker girls. And I think the mace was like kind of that rapey, that rape prevention mace. That RPM, if you will. And then, these bitches got wild. These bitches got a little bit British on each other, and they started, kind of attacking each other. One of them had like a shawl. It was some special event. I think, I don't know if it was a wedding or somebody had like a fifth child or something. I don't know when you get the shawl, if it's a parenting thing as well as a marriage bachelorette thing. But shit got crispy, and then bitches started macing each other. And I don't use the term bitches towards all women, but these were, in the beginning, they were ladies, and by the end, they were out there on cobblestones, barefoot, rolling around. A lot of dirty sequins in the streets, not athletes either. I'm going to go ahead and classify these ladies as not athletes. But that was part of Cleveland, man. There was a lot more. Had some good times there. Ate some good corned beef. Shout out to my buddy Tom McCroby. He came through. He lost a limb last year, so it was good to see him. Last time I saw him, he had 2 limbs, and this time, 1 limb. And arms, he had other 2 limbs, legs. And he still has those. So it's interesting when you have a friend who goes down a limb, because you kind of, as a person who still has all their limbs, I got everything right now. You kind of don't know how to approach it. So you show up sort of, like, especially if it's an arm, it's like, do I hug? Do I, touch him on the neck? Like, what do I do? What do I do? But it was pretty beautiful, man. He had an amputation, and then he got he got the limb burned up. Because some people think you can only get cremated if you're dead. but not true. If you lose a limb, you can also get the limb cremated. And it was pretty beautiful that he had a keychain with like one of those little, I don't know if it's like a Corona bottle. You get it to be like a if you go down to Destin, Florida, or Punta Cana or somewhere, one of those beach towns, and you can get those little things with the sand in them, those Corona bottles. But he had that with a little bit of his what originally was his other appendage. So that was, it was new. It was kind of novel, I guess, and it was, I think, him making the most out of being, down to one slapstick, and that's where he's at. So good to see him, man. Good to see him. What else happened in Cleveland? I stayed at this beautiful hotel called the Arcade. I worked at Hilarities. We had, saw some ginormous tits. Met a dude who was kind of crippled a little bit, had the worst breath. You know what I'm saying? Here's what I'm saying. If you're going to be crippled, brush your teeth. That's one of my things, right? Because here's the thing. We all are crippled in some way, right? So I guess this goes for all of us. We got to take care of what we have left. And that's what I think maybe is going to be some of the theme today, is just taking care of what we have left. You're down a limb, brush your fucking teeth, man. You got spina bifida, wash behind your ears, I've got mental health disorders and sentimental health disorders, and, my dick gets a little bit queasy sometimes when I'm trying to do sex, then that means I got to make sure that I comb my hair and wash it. It's like we got to take care of what we have left. We got to covet those things. And that goes back to my boy Tommy Mack, who's, sure, he has only got one arm, but that other arm's always with him, and he's taking a little bit of piece of that in a commercialized kind of Corona bottle. I wish that the Corona thing wasn't on there. And if he's listening to this, maybe you file that off of the bottle. I think it's a little bit cooler if it doesn't seem like, my old arm is brought to you by, a Mexican beer. Anyhow, I'm happy to have you guys. And I want to thank everybody in Cleveland that came out. My buddy Kevin Best, who makes all my shirts. He makes all of the Hamp shirts and some new shirts. We got a new shirt that's coming out that's going to have all of the tour dates on it. That'll be online soon. And he and his whole family came through, and just always a pleasure to see them. And his brother actually lives in his basement and makes the shirts. So his brother, enjoys a good bit of whiskey and different sippers, and he lives down in his basement, and that man makes the shirt. So if you're getting a shirt from me, that shirt is made by the hands of a man who's living in a basement running off alcohol. And there's something old-fashioned about that, and there's something beautiful about that. While I was in Cleveland, I also went over to Akron, and people know that, I'm a sober guy, and I went to this guy, Dr. Bob's house. And Dr. Bob was incremental in the starting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he and his wife almost ran this sort of halfway house where they helped, tons of people get sober and get their life on track. And the house is like a national monument now, so it was just, it was really touching for me to go in there. And this lady, I won't say her name because you're not supposed to say people's names, but she is just a volunteer there, and she just kind of shares her story with you, and she shows you all around this guy's house where he was hiding liquor, Dr. Bob, and it was just incredible. That was just an incredible time for me to be in that environment, and just really inspired me to kind of stay on the path that I'm on at the moment with, staying off that liquor and staying off of that cocaine, baby, that dust, because people's out there on it. And if you're struggling out there, and if you get a chance to go to Akron, to just feel that, it's just a beautiful fire it's not even a real fire, but it's just the air is just burning with just this energy that's, it just lifts your makes your feet grow. You just feel like you're standing, just the foundation of something special is right there beneath your feet. So that was really amazing to be a part of and to get to see that. And I also have an announcement that we have a sidekick in studio today. He's going to be doing a residency with us here for a while. and I appreciate him being here. My man Ari Manis is here.
Thanks for having me, Theo. This is very exciting.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I'm a big fan of Ari and his comedy. He's a comedian. How long you been doing it?
Almost 5 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Religiously. You
Yeah.
know? I don't think I've taken a week off.
Really?
If I feel too guilty to in my head about it. What's the longest you ever taken off?
I guess a week.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an addiction sometimes to keep doing it, or at this point it's the job, you know?
Yeah.
And you won't be able to see Ari on the YouTube. You'll be able to see him next week. Today, we're not going to show his beautiful mugs. You can
I don't feel comfortable. I've been gone for the weekend. I feel a little sunburnt.
Yeah.
I'm just a little self-conscious about I have body image issues.
That's fine, man.
But I'll be ready next week.
What gets you about your
Yeah.
body? Like when you think about body image issues,
Like, I'm not fat,
right?
but I don't
No.
want to take my shirt off either.
Yeah.
You know, if we went to the beach with some ladies,
Yeah.
I'd probably just leave my shirt on and sit by the towel
So you be that,
in the
so
sand.
you're the lean guy with his shirt on at the beach.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting.
I got some moles.
Yeah?
Yeah, you have any moles? Body moles?
You know, I've been pretty fortunate to not have a lot of those body moles.
Yeah. I've got a few of them removed from when I was a kid. My parents would take me to the dermatologist and I would get them surgically removed. But now I can't really afford to go there myself. Or I could probably afford it, but I just, I have other priorities where I want to put my money into besides getting moles removed.
Yeah.
So I just let them go.
Well, some people, it almost seems like you see some people out there with some really big moles or groups of moles. You know, you see some people with some damn, I met a girl one time had practically the Little Dipper on her back, you know, and you see people with these sequences of moles and you wonder why do they don't want to remove them? But I guess it's part of you, you know, and some people believe in ancient cultures that you carry different parts of your spirit in these little pockets on your body.
In these moles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is part of me.
Yeah.
For sure. But maybe one day.
So I could imagine that. Now, if they get too big, they say if they get bigger than a dime, you got to cut them off. And one time I spent some time around an escort, and she had a...
Were you paying for this escort?
No, it was it was kind of an arrangement, but I didn't get involved with the escort.
Gotcha.
But she had a mole that was, oh man, it was Mount Rushmore. I mean, this thing was huge, dude. This thing was in another life, it had a grandiose life. You know,
Do you think she had some clients that maybe paid a little extra to be with that birthmark?
I could see people being into that. Maybe some Asian guys or Japanese businessmen.
Yeah.
But I don't know that. And it was heating up. It was almost like it was like, it kind of had the red around the base and stuff. I mean, it gets very alarming, you know, and it's almost like when you see a sick tree, sometimes you'll see a sick tree and its roots have like this kind of white on them, or it'll be kind of splotchy around the bottom, and you know that tree's sick. And that's kind of what was going on with her. And I remember I gave her $150 and the information to one of my good friends who's a dermatologist, and sent her in his direction. I don't know if she got it removed, but
Hopefully,
yeah.
yeah.
But how was your weekend, man? Let's get in a little bit of your weekend.
My weekend was intense. You know, there was the ups and the downs. I was in the Big Pine Comedy Festival in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Yeah, it's beautiful country. It's mountain country up there, and they actually have good Mexican food up there.
Yeah, they do. It's interesting. Like, you think of Arizona, or at least I think of Arizona, and I think just this desert, desolation. But a Flagstaff is foresty. There's pine trees everywhere. It's a little cooler than the rest. It's a little more hip. It's a college town. And it's beautiful. It was awesome. I got to do some stand-up at some bar shows.
Nice.
For some small audience. I won Best of Fest.
Oh, really?
Which means I get to perform for a paid week at the House of Comedy in Arizona. That'll be exciting. I'm excited to do that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Very exciting. Just working my way up one little festival at a time. But, then there was also some intense moments in the weekend. I went to the Grand Canyon because it's only about an hour and a half from the Grand Canyon. I've never been there.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've never been there either.
So I was thinking, I got to go. I'm here. I'm this close.
And when you're getting up to the Grand Canyon, do you have expectations? Do you feel like it was going to be not as good as you had heard? Like, what were some of your thoughts when you go up to a national thing like that? Because I remember when I went to Mount Rushmore, I was like, oh, this thing's going to be a piece of shit, you know? But when I got to Mount Rushmore, and I think it's in North Dakota or South Dakota, it blew my mind. It was really, really awesome. And they had built so much stuff around it, like going up to it, that most of because the faces are just up there in the mountain, but there's all this structure and this cement and marble going up to it that you're almost tranced before you get there. What was it like at the canyon?
So I'd only seen pictures. I've heard, but all the locals are saying you got to go. It's incredible. So I had high expectations, and I'm going there with my girlfriend. Too, I should mention, I brought my girlfriend to the festival.
Right, and I'll mention, I know this, that you have a live-in girlfriend.
Yeah, she moved in 3 weeks into the relationship.
Wow.
And I've never lived with a girl before.
Wow.
And I'll say there's the ups and downs to having a girlfriend and a live-in girlfriend. But so she's coming with me for this journey to Flagstaff.
And how long have you guys been seeing each other?
Probably about 7 months now, so a good while.
And I know in the beginning you were talking a lot about different sex and different sexual activities. Whenever you and I would see each other at the Comedy Store, you were telling me some of these, just that it was exciting. There was a lot of...
Yeah, I mean, I'm very attracted to her. So in the beginning, we were probably having 3 sessions daily, 3 sexual sessions.
That is
just felt like a teenager,
Yeah, that's children.
Like an 18-year-old young buck just exploring the world.
I haven't done that since I was probably 15 years, 16 years old, or really been involved in wanting, maybe 17, 18. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I lost my virginity at 17.
Yeah, me too, actually. So it would have been around there that I was really wanting to do sex more than once a time, Because sometimes I like these days I have a lot of anxiety. I'll hold my breath during sex. I had this thing for a while. I would hold my breath during sex and just get going, and then I would almost kind of pass out.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah, it wasn't like part of one of those, you hear a lot of these Asian culture tricks where people are, tying themselves up to pipes and shit in the closet and all that, and trying to, handcuffing their feet to their neck and all of this kind of shit to get, higher climax ratios or whatever, spraying out heavily. And that I wasn't trying to do that. I would just be like, have just so much weird anxiety and stuff that I would just find myself holding my breath during sex and then just, kind of come to.
Ah, that's interesting. Yeah, ours is more normal. As far as I know, she's not holding her breath. I was just breathing. I wasn't even thinking about my breath. I was just breathing regular. Mm-hmm. And, so we're in Flagstaff together. We're heading to the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. And then on our way there, we start fighting. Because she bought this new lamp for our apartment, and she didn't tell me about it. She just surprised me with this new lamp.
Ooh, the lamp surprise.
And I'm just kind of like, can't we just make these decisions together, Kind of a dumb fight, but a common one with us, Just not taking me into consideration is how I felt.
Oh, a common one with couples, too. My buddy, Vard, this dude I used to know named Vard, he was from, I don't know, another country.
Sounds kind of Russian, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was somewhere over there.
Yeah, Ukraine.
And he had money one time, him and his wife, he saved up some money to get a new carpeting, and he spent all the money on drugs, and he ended up literally got cardboard, but thick cardboard, nailed down in their entire apartment. So he had cardboard put into their apartment.
It sounds like he did the drugs, then decided the cardboard.
Yeah, the cardboard was tertiary to the...
That sounds like a drug-based decision.
Oh, yeah, that could have been part of it. But, I mean, he had it professionally done. So he had, like commercial-grade cardboard.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, throughout his entire place.
That actually sounds kind of different. Like, you're kind of selling it like, I want to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, look, man, flooring is big, man. I remember growing up, and that was a big thing around Louisiana was people did flooring. A lot of people that, did drugs and couldn't find a lot of work would get into flooring. And they had people, they'll put fucking flooring on your ceiling. They had people, that was a big thing. Have you ever had flooring on your ceiling? And people were getting linoleum ceilings done. And they had some interesting stuff going on. So, okay, so she got the lamp.
So we're in this dumb fight on the way to the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. And we ended up breaking up on the way to the Grand Canyon. So she's now telling me, I don't want to go to the Grand Canyon with my ex-boyfriend. You broke up with me. Take me back to Flagstaff. And I'm thinking, this is my one chance to see the Grand Canyon. It's what I had been planning for weeks. I'm going to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, well, you're there, man.
So I'm an hour away at this point.
Yeah.
So I ended up forcing this girl that I just broke up with to go with me to the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
So we're there. She's crying, calling me a sociopath, saying that I shouldn't have taken her. I shouldn't have forced her to go to the Grand Canyon.
Does Liam Neeson show up in this? I feel like this is like a trafficking. Go on.
And so I'm just trying to enjoy it. By the way, it was incredible. I think I would have enjoyed it more had I not been in this conflict with the lady.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, was it hard to like? Cause if you want to get pictures done or something, you can't.
I took no pictures, and I think that's definitely something I would have taken pictures.
Yeah.
If I hadn't been in that fight mindset. So I just, I soaked it in, and probably only stayed about 15 minutes.
Ooh.
Also because of it.
And did you go on that glass floor? They have that glass drawbridge.
No, what I found out is that I thought about that. That's about $80, and it's not at the main Grand Canyon place because the Grand Canyon. I didn't realize how big it was. It looks big in the photos, but the Grand Canyon is humongous. It's huge. It's vast. You can't see it all in a day.
And somebody tried to jump it, didn't they?
Maybe there's like a narrow part that Evel Knievel or something.
Let me look that up. Jump the Grand Canyon. So you guys. So did she enjoy the Grand Canyon at all?
No, she was crying and she kept saying, let's leave. I don't want to be here. Let's leave. So, I enjoyed it as much as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And then we left. And then we went back, and then we had this awkward...
And you drove back?
Yeah, and we drove back to L.A. So we had this awkward 8-hour broken up car ride.
Y'all stayed there last night?
No, we left after my show, so we left there about 10 p.m. and drove into the night, into this fresh breakup, right? And she's crying. I'm playing music as loud as I can to drown out the crying.
Oh, damn,
and,
dude.
and
Really?
that makes me sound very insensitive.
Yeah, it does.
I'm not trying to be insensitive.
No, you're being a man, dude.
I'm just trying to move on as best as I can. We're just,
What music was it?
Probably sad punk rock music. That probably wasn't the best choice of music.
Some emo stuff like Lumineers or Chainsmokers, all of that?
Yeah, some similar genre of that, for sure. So she's crying, we're broken up, and let me also say, we broke up just because we're fighting too much.
Yeah.
That's what it came down to. It wasn't, I didn't cheat on her, she didn't cheat on me, there wasn't any heartbreak, so to speak.
This has been happening.
This has been happening.
Been looming.
So then we get home.
Yeah.
Because we live together still. And we end up
having sex. No.
How did you know that?
I mean, I guess I just hoped it, dude.
Yeah, we ended up...
This sounds like one of the best and worst like porn videos you could ever watch. It's like a couple goes to the Grand Canyon, there's crying, there's the long car ride. I think more porn videos should be like this because
it'd be real.
It would be real, and you get some reality along with this porn because a lot of this porn there's no real reason why these people are fucking most of the time.
No, and half of them, there's no, like, actually, I found out actually on your other podcast, Asa Akira, remember that day?
Oh, yeah.
She called me a unicorn because I like porno with storyline to add a little bit more realism to it. Because most of these pornos now, they're just dressed up in fishnets and they just go to town right away.
Oh, yeah, it's just it's just people just pink hunters out there. There's people hunting vagina and hunting booty holes out there.
Exactly.
And sometimes they'll leave these booty holes open. I don't know if you've ever seen any of this activity.
Gape action.
Oh, man. And it's
I'm not into that at all.
And I worry that these women are going to catch cold or they're going to... It just seems so unprofessional, you know?
I think the cold is probably the least of their worries.
Yeah.
I'm worried about more permanent, like, what if that gaping never goes away one day?
Whoa, yeah. Let's don't think about it too heavily.
We end up having sex, and in my mind, I'm thinking this is breakup sex.
Right.
But in her mind, it was makeup sex. We're back together.
Wow.
So now we're back together.
Really?
Yeah.
So right now you guys are together?
Yeah, so I have a girlfriend again.
Dang, dude, you are living it.
What do I do?
You know?
I think I'm just going to roll with it, you know?
I mean, do you still care about her?
Yeah, I do. I care about her. I'm trying to be drama free in my life. And every time we get in all these fights, and I'm just like, I don't need this. I don't need this drama in my life. I don't need these fights.
But do you think you're looking for you're also in your head, no matter what, is it headed towards a place of ending? Because that's one thing sometimes it's like weird when you already know the outcome, but you're still playing with when you already know the answer, but you're still playing with the numbers, you know?
I think I'm gonna keep it open minded. I'm not gonna say that it's over or we're gonna be together forever. I'm just kind of along for the ride.
Oh, along for the ride. Wow, Grand Canyon. That's crazy. Joe Dirt, dude. I remember when I first saw Joe Dirt, I thought it was a documentary. And when I finally got to meet David Spade, I remember talking to him and saying, did a lot of people reach out to you, and a lot of orphans reach out to you about your journey? And he's like, what in the fuck are you talking about? And he literally thought I was one of the dumbest people he'd ever met, man. But whatever.
I'm on your side. I would think like kids especially.
Yeah.
And orphans, most of them, this is something I'm just guessing here, but I'm guessing most of them aren't that educated compared to the non-orphans. So they're probably watching this movie, and no one's there to tell them it's a fake thing.
Yeah.
So I'm on your side. I would assume that orphans would have reached out to him.
Yeah.
But there was no, back when that movie came out, there was no Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, there wasn't.
Whatnot.
You couldn't get those extracurriculars. So a lot of people, I'm sure, were who had been in between homes or just left somewhere. I'm sure it resonated with them that way, and that's all I was. I mean, I guess it just hit me like that. It just seemed like an orphan that had and gotten left at the Grand Canyon and found his way. Well, we'll get into some calls, man. That's a good question. Like, What do you do? What do you do with that relationship? I mean, it's been so long since I've been in a relationship. I don't even remember what those fights are like. I mean, I just remember the sex was good when I was young, like sober sex, I feel like it's for children. When I was young, when you're young, you can everything's so exciting, somebody's leg or hip or, seeing your own nutsack in the mirror, all that shit is just exciting, dude. It's like watching the damn Nature Channel.
Yeah.
And even seeing a piece of ass or a titty fly out of something. It just, or feeling some titty and like, putting two of your fingers in somebody's mouth at the same time or just being nasty. It's all so natural. And then you get older and you're just like, oh, jeepers, the last thing you want to do is fuck something you really know.
That sounds, I feel a little bad for you.
Yeah, and maybe you know what? I mean, I don't know. I'll be seeing my therapist tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Damn.
So you know where I'll be at. But we got some great calls, Ari, and I'm
excited to hear 'em.
I'm gonna have you stick with us on these calls, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, we're gonna have Ari in for next week. He'll be on video. You can catch him on YouTube as well. And we're gonna just keep it cruising. I got some dates I'm gonna drop. It's just Huntsville, November 16th through 19th, Huntsville, Alabama. It'll be my first time performing in the state of Alabama, so pretty stoked. And I know that you will be November 3rd and 4th at the La Jolla Comedy Store.
Yeah, excited for that.
So people can check that out. Something pretty funny this weekend. President Donald Trump tweeted, he made a reference to Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un? Is that it?
Could be Kim Jong. Kim Jong,
yeah.
He called him Rocket Man, which I thought was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty interesting. And I've done a little bit more research into getting my, it's no secret that I wish my neck was a little bit longer. And I don't know if you have things about yourself that you don't like.
Sure, yeah, of course, yeah.
And one of mine is I always wish I had a little bit more neck. My arms are only kind of medium length arms, and people can maybe see them on the YouTube and just medium length arms.
Yeah, medium.
But I always wanted arms that were a little bit more reachy, just really, so you could get something, so you could hug a motherfucker and they knew who you were. I want to be able to hug somebody and just tickle them at the same time, And
you also want a longer neck.
But I've always wanted a little bit longer neck. So I have invested in a few neck braces.
I was going to say, what are the things that the African women
The stretchers.
wear? Those stretchers. Is that too extreme for you, or would you be willing to experiment with something like that?
Well, I would experiment. Well, my goal is I got children's neck braces and adult neck braces. And I'm going to start with the child's and wear it in the evenings and see if it starts to just give me a little bit of length. Now, I'm also making sure that I don't detach anything or damage myself. But I'm excited to have just a little bit more.
Another suggestion I'd have, this is kind of more long-term thought,
Yeah.
but probably stay away from neck exercises, because muscle will only make it look kind of girthier and shorter. So you probably want a thin neck.
Yeah.
So I'd stay away from any kind of exercise or sport that uses a lot of neck muscles.
Yeah. Yeah, and and I've quit lifting the weights, which has been interesting, and gotten more into stretching and doing yoga actually, and doing things that are a little bit more beneficial to my soul and getting my reaching going. And it is nice. You do feel a little bit more in control of your body, which I like. But I want to have, I want to have a turtleneck and not look like I'm trying to hide from people. Mm-hmm. I want to have that reach. I want people to look at me and be like, oh, that guy can look around.
I'm excited to see what happens with the neck braces.
We'll see.
But I will say, from an outsider's perspective, just from me, your friend, knowing you for a few years, I've never thought to myself, Theo has
limited neck.
I've never thought that about you. To me, your neck's pretty fine, so I wouldn't worry about it too much, regardless of if the neck brace works or not.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate that. That. But yeah, I'm going to try it, and I guess I'll keep you guys posted. Let's get into some calls. The hotline is 985-664-9503. We're going to get into some calls right now, and if you want to hit that hotline with any thoughts, responses, anything, you can let us know what you think of having a sidekick on. I'm interested in everybody's thoughts and feelings. So are you really under the microscope?
I was going to say, yeah, can you be, if you're going to leave thoughts about me, just be sensitive that I'm a person.
Yeah.
And I have feelings.
Yeah. 100%, brother. All right, let's get into some calls right here.
Theo, this is Dylan Green. I'm from Bellingham, Washington.
All right, I'm going to start that over. All right, let's get into some calls right here.
Hey, Theo, this is Dylan Green. I'm from Bellingham, Washington, way up in the top left corner of the nation. Love the show, man. I think what you're doing is awesome.
Bellingham, Washington. Now, Washington, that's clean water country. A lot of Native Americans went up there to get clean water, and they stayed there. Let's keep it going.
And all the power to you. Keep doing it. Never stop.
Thanks, Dylan.
I had a little story for you, and had some thoughts about it. Just want to share this one with you. When I was in 8th grade, my class went on the science trip to California, and that was pretty exciting for us all. And I was dating what was my first girlfriend then, and this is where I had my first in the pants experience with a young lady, which is pretty radical.
Yeah, man. And you know what I feel? Is it perverted of me to think about those times in my life sometimes?
No, it's normal. Everyone does that.
Because it's weird. If I'm thinking about, I remember making love to my girlfriend on the trip to Walt Disney Worlds. And we went there, and they had a bus, and we ended up just doing sex in the seat at night while everybody else was resting. But when I think about that now, those are children having sex in my head, Even though I'm one of the children, it just, I don't know. I just have something about it feels a little like too much,
I'd say you were a young adult. 17, young adult.
Yeah, young adult. Okay, let's hear the rest of your story, brother.
And it was crazy. We're just sitting on this bus, and we were driving from one science museum to the other, and there was parent chaperones surrounding us.
Yeah. Oh, nothing feels better, dude, than getting a little bit of trim when they got some parental chaperones around. It's like when there's mice running around and you're holding a fucking warm chunk of cheese in your hand and none of them know, brother. That is truly beautiful. Praise God. Let's go some more.
And we just got down and dirty right in that bus seat, and it was awesome. And looking back, though, it's pretty odd to think that, my 13-year-old self was kind of getting into that action. And my question to you is, like, what are your thoughts on when kids start experimenting with that kind of shit? I'm a 25-year-old young man now, and thinking about, like, my 13-year-old cousins getting into that sort of stuff blows my mind.
Well, that's a great question. Like, it's interesting because it's like for us, it was whatever happened was okay, as long as it was like two consenting young people and you were just like learning and riding your hormones and, feeling those young crotch nuptials and stuff like that. Yeah, it was normal. But when you think about like your own child at 13, doing that, or like he's saying his nephew or niece, like it's very, is different. It too much? Well, I know the pornography is too much. I can't even, I remember if you wanted to see some crotch, we had a kid in our class who drew the best vagina. And dude, he was, for 3 years, that's all he did. people were like, dude, I need to see one, and he would etch up a great one, and he had all different kinds. He had different ethnicities. You could hit him up. I remember sneaking up, riding my bike over to his house at 8 p.m. one night to get us just a quick sketch of some puss,
Wow.
And that was how we got it.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't have an access to some good nudie magazines, and then my buddy's dad used to keep nudie magazines, tit literature under his sink. And I would bike over there 4 or 5 miles to go see that, to take a dump.
Yeah, my buddy, we would steal my friend's dad's porno.
Yeah.
The VHS tape,
Yeah.
hidden, what he thought was hidden under his TV. But any night that they were out of town, we're all going to Seth's house. We're checking out that porno.
Dude, I remember I used to babysit for some kids, right? And one weekend when the whole family was out of town, I broke into their house to watch pornography that the parents had. So it's just, like when you have these young people, and it was just different back then, because now if you had your cell phone, how you would even leave school or leave the house, how you would even make it out of the door without masturbating, I cannot fathom. Let's hear a little more.
So wondering if you've had any experiences like that when you were a younger dude, if you have any comments or thoughts on that whole situation and that scenario. But at any rate, man, thank you for listening to the people of our nation. It's a weird state of affairs that we're all in, and I'm excited to continue to listen to your podcast and catching up.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I appreciate the nice words. Yeah, and Ari and I were just talking about that. Ari, would you serve? What would it be? How would your childhood honestly have been different if you had access to the sexual library of pornography and material that's out there now back then?
I mean, dude, forget how my childhood would be different. My adult life is different because of the access to pornography. I masturbate way more than I'm sure I would without it. So yeah, if I was a kid with even more horny whatever the word is, all those hormones raging inside me.
Full dick. I had full dick back then.
Yeah, it could have been a problem. So I think maybe they have to tackle that in sex ed. Maybe that's a whole new chapter that they didn't teach us in our sex ed. We just learned the body parts. Maybe now they have to teach you responsible masturbation techniques.
Yeah.
Maybe it's kind of like those DARE programs for drugs. They need to make something like that for porno and sex.
Yeah, dare to keep kids off of Pornhub.
Yeah. I think that's probably a real thing. That's something that has to be talked about more than it used to because it's so much more accessible to kids.
Yeah, it was, the first time I saw some nudie magazines, we were burying some dead animals and we found some. And then another time, some kid who ended up setting my hair on fire. I think he was Polynesian.
I'm glad it
maybe.
grew back. Glad you still got it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This one kid, and he slammed me up against a tree outside in the rain, and he had a picture of some cooter in his pocket, of some fresh cooter out of a magazine. And he said, "You know what that is, boy? That's cooter, boy." And then he just beat me. Him and his friends just beat me. And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And it gave me a lot of weird feelings about looking at, looking at actual magazine sex. But yeah, I cannot fathom these kids. I can't fathom. It would be like growing up in Colombia. That's what I would get an 8-ball for my 10th birthday, and I would never see the light of day again. So I don't know. But yeah, but then when I look back on it, I remember feeling a girl's titty through a barbed wire fence one time.
Wow.
And that just took me to another level. I felt like I was sitting, I couldn't even feel my legs. That's how good that titty felt, One girl, I remember feeling her chest at the movies. She didn't even have any titties, dude. She just had nipples that were a little bit different than mine.
But you still loved it.
Oh,
yeah.
I was so erect, dude. I don't even know. I couldn't even feel any part of my body except for my penis. All my nerves ran into my penis and just felt like they just started fucking each other at the end of my skin.
They probably were.
It was just, those hormones are so powerful. But I appreciate you calling in and asking about this.
Yeah, that was a nice guy. That guy was cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about what's going on, and you were on that dirty bus ride, and you were out there just filling your hands with that sweet cheese, and just I do love the espionage of the chaperone just lurking around, and here you are just crotching down.
Yeah, could you imagine getting caught at 13 doing that in the bus?
Yeah.
That would be uncomfortable.
And you'd be a hero, dude.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, you would be a legend. All right, let's take another caller here. Here we go.
Hey, Theo, got a question for you. Games. Down here in Florida on our 5th day without power.
Games. He's talking about different games. Onward.
And have been playing a lot of card games with the old lady. Now, when I was a kid, we didn't have internet or cable television for that matter, and we had to come up with our own games to keep us occupied. And we used to play, you got your kick the bucket. You got your, we used to call it horse. It's like a poor man's horse where you just kind of pick up rocks and try and hit stuff.
Damn, dude, that just sounds real Middle Eastern, but onward.
And, of course, you got freeze tag and spotlight. And spotlight, if you haven't heard of spotlight, it's basically freeze tag, at night where you got a flashlight. My buddy Darius, he'd win that one all the time. But my question is, what kind of games did y'all play down in Louisiana as a kid before all this internet stuff?
Well, one in my town, I've talked about this before, is gay chicken, where you and your buddy or you and a fella would hold on each other's wiener, and it sounds perverse, but it's not. And the first person to let go was gay. So you were basically... But if you got an erection, you were also gay. And this is a time when, people would be like, oh, you're gay, as if it was a bad, it was a wrong thing or something. Or that's how you lost, So, yeah, I remember doing that, and I wouldn't, play it as an adult unless it was for charity now. But I remember at the time holding on, getting to know another man quickly. And, and it's weird because you're hoping they get erect so they lose. And you'll stay in there. In the later rounds, you start slapping each other.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then when you let go, it's a little bit more of like a rodeo at that point.
How old were you when this was going on?
Oh, I don't know, 11, 12, 13. You got to be old enough to get erect.
I guess you got to remember who got excited to play that game the most. That person's probably...
Yeah, that's a good point.
Probably gay.
It was a few of the older
Whose
boys.
idea, yeah.
Yeah, this one kid named Sham, dude. S-H-A-W-M.
It sounds like you were molested, actually.
No, man.
No?
No, these were everybody was under the age of 18 that played.
Okay.
This one kid, Sham, and this one boy named Inch Cutman, he didn't even have any legs, going back to, we're talking about people that are missing things and stuff, but this boy didn't have any legs, and he still had a hell of a dick on him. And,
that's good. He had something.
Yeah, and you had to kind of sit down there with him to play. Or his brother would hold him up and he would play. But that was a time when, everything wasn't so crazy back then. People were, I guess, there was a lot of sexual weird stuff. When you're at those young ages, you're just experimenting.
Yeah.
I remember one time walking in on a couple of younger family members of mine, and they were, putting their thumbs in each other's butts, these two boys, and they weren't, they're both in healthy adult relationships now. It was just kids.
Yeah, some things you just got to block out.
Yeah, it's just kids doing stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just a time when people were doing different things when they were younger. But different games we played in Louisiana. I remember Gay Chicken. We had this game called Banshee, where you would put a pillowcase or something over somebody's head, and then they would run around and try to catch people. And it was really impossible for them to catch anybody. But it was brave as fuck, dude. Trying to catch people, run full steam when you're just in a hot bag. Pretty mesmerizing. So I guess that was it. We had the game where you would you fill your mouth with sugar and try to knock the sugar out of each other's mouth. What else did we play? I'm going to have to think about this and get back to you, man. I have to think about some of the games that we play. We would play those games at night, hide and go seek at night. We'd get on the CB radio and see if we could get perverts to come over. And then this dude would always beat them up, this older dude, because a lot of truckers would drive off the interstate that were really perverts. All right, let's get into another one here. Here we go.
Hey, what's up, Theo? This is Josh calling again from Charlotte.
Thanks for calling, Josh.
Talking a few weeks ago about having a girlfriend who had that super soaker downstairs. But what a big fan of the podcast, man. But I was thinking, you talk about having some guests come on soon. What about having a listener come on, dude? Give a shout. I'll call out on a Monday to chit-chat with the legend. But anyway, man, just a thought. Also, elaborate on that shirt you had on this past Monday, dude. Looks like a buffet for Timon and Pumbaa from Lion King or something.
Oh, that was my bug shirt, man. I went shopping and got me a bug shirt. It's got a lot of bugs on it because sometimes I feel like I'm infested with different things. And so I felt like that shirt kind of documented that. But I'm glad that you called actually back, because I had a psychologist that called in who had some answers to some of your questions about your girlfriend was spraying out. You had the girlfriend that had that magical crotch, you know, that tuck everlasting down there, you know, and she's just, you know.
Squirter?
Yeah, she was really just doing the, you know, she was a real fireman, if you will, you know. She was down there killing heat with that, with some sweet wine, you know, making crotch wine. And
it's a gift.
Yeah, they say it's a gift, man. In some places it's illegal too. There's some country.
Saudi Arabia, maybe? I can imagine it being illegal there.
I think it's in Africa. Okay. But I know that, but I know she had some thoughts for you. So I'm going to put you guys on a mashup this week, and I'll put that out on YouTube where you can get some of her thoughts. But yeah, well, look, I'm taking some of the guidance right now by having Ari in and by having a residency here with a sidekick. So
yeah, maybe as a sidekick, I could work on getting a live caller in here, and I'll screen the call, because, you know, that's something that Theo shouldn't have to do, just because it's a lot of work screening calls, because you add calling to the mix, then you're adding people calling in and just masturbating over the phone.
Yeah.
And you're getting calls like that, and you have to weed those out and just get to the responsible young folks like yourself.
Yeah, and I've had some of that. I've had people call in and leave voicemails of them just, you know, touching themselves and doing different stuff like that. So we don't 100% want that. Let's take another call, man. Let's take another call here. All right, we're really cruising through some.
Yeah.
Theo, what's up, you little glitter biscuit?
I'll take that.
This is Josh. I'm calling from the rural Midwest.
Thank you for calling.
You made a comment on a previous podcast about how in the future that handicapped people would be in power. They would hold the power, and that they would be the ruling class.
Yes, I did.
Now, I know you probably just is saying that haphazardly, but I think there's some prophetic validity to it, because I think you're a prophet.
Wow.
I think you're a comedic prophet, and I think that there's something to that statement. It's terrifying, but I think it might be true. I was wondering if you maybe could expound upon that for us.
I will, man. I appreciate you calling and remembering and asking about that. Thank you. I do believe that everything evens out, you know. So if you got, like, you know, I'm talking about my buddy who lost an arm, right, in the beginning. Next life, biggest dick ever. You know, that guy's coming with a dick that'll fucking, you know, that could probably bunt a baseball, you know, or a dick that could thumb wrestle, you know. And I believe that it all evens out. I believe you might go to a heaven or to a higher place or to a hell where you got to battle. I just believe that it all evens out. You know, if you were a slave to work in this life, then the next life you get to be a slave to, you know, more joy and spending time with people that you love, you know. I just think that everything seems to even out. And in the future, I could see, you know, people that are able-bodied and people that are, you know, seem normal to us now as being, you know, the weaker of the species. You know, I could see in the future we wake up in a realm where there's mentally handicapped people with swords and riding on these, you know, gladiator bikes and shooting, you know, rubber bullets at people and, you know, starting little fun wars and shit, you know, and they're the rulers. And we all have to be down here and, you know, sleep under wet blankets and eat peanut butter only. And you think that's not fun, but you think that is fun. But eating peanut butter is hard after the first couple bites. And so I just think it all evens out, man. And I think we're going to, you know, we can't see it all so clearly now, but if we think of it a little bit more that way, then it just takes a little bit of the pressure off, you know. And you see a handicapped dude next time, some guy who's, you know, sometimes you see that one guy who's just like Jenga down the street, you know, who's barely got it together and he's fighting for every step. And next time that dude is doing jujitsu and that dude is, you know, cashing checks and snapping necks and eating air pussy and living the dream. and playing guitars and doing whatever he wants to do. I just feel like it has to be. And so, I think it just helps me keep things in perspective sometimes, You see somebody who thinks that they have it all now, but then next time they realize, or we all realize what, the other side of the coin is like. What do you think? You think?
I never really thought about it till right now, but I think there's definitely a lot of truth to what you're spitting out. And I think especially in today's age with the Second Life and this digital world that we're making and 3D and those glasses, the Google goggles, you could be anything you want to be now.
Yeah.
If it's not in this world, maybe the digital world. So you're going to see...
It's a good point.
Our able bodies, like you said, it's not going to matter as much.
Yeah.
I mean, it matters right now because we're walking around.
We need them.
We need them, but I'd say potentially even in our lifetimes, sooner than you think, you're not going to need them. You could do basically everything just sitting in your chair at home, laying in bed, whatever. So it's not going to matter if you're disabled, and these disabled people may even capitalize on this and take advantage of it because, well, we're going to go out and want to live our lives. They don't need to. They could just work at home and do their thing and take over the world.
Yeah, and when you really start to imagine, that's a great point, because that helps me think, Ari, that when you start to think like, say somebody that have autism, but they get to build this Sims world or something, and then we have our house in the Sims universe or in this digital universe where we invite people over, and it's like a regular house, but they create some masterpiece because they are able to, tap into other realms, and they're able to, they're just able to
think differently than we are.
Yeah, I mean, they got the Lord's yeast in their brain, and they're able to really just get to levels that we're not able to get to. And so when we get to a place technologically or physiotechnologically where we can expound upon those people's brains and those people's imaginations, man, who knows what we're going to crack into. And maybe that's going to be part of, maybe it won't even be like leaving this earth and going to somewhere else. Maybe it'll be right here. But yeah, I think that the people that have experienced the toughest, it won't always be that way. I just think it all evens out. And when you see, sometimes you go to back to high school reunions, and somebody who, had something before, they don't have it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you didn't have pride before, you didn't have self-esteem, or you suffered from self-loathing a lot, but now you're not suffering that anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that if you get to live long enough, you kind of get to see everything go full circle a little bit. You kind of get to see it all. You kind of get to see what it was all about. So yeah, I love that question. I love that thought, man. And I love the fact that one day, people with Down syndrome will be Jon Snow.
Yeah, they'll be allowed to join the military. I say let them join. Let them join the military.
Yeah, and let them hug the fuck out of people, dude. Because I've always had an idea that if you put a Down syndrome fellow on every drug dealing corner in America where people's dealing drugs, that the game will change out there. Because it's hard to deal drugs when somebody's giving you a hug. And it's hard to want to get all coked up when somebody's just hugging you from behind really hard or making you feel love. I've always believed a lot of that. All right, I want to get to a question from one of our Patreon highest level supporters here. This is William Morris asking, what's the most embarrassing moment of your life? Respect, Theo. Love the show. The most embarrassing moment of my life? When I was in grade school, they had this thing called Campus Life, and it was where kids would go spend time, and it was religious based, but it was just like a fun night for kids to go do things together, like on a Wednesday night. So in junior high, it gave you a place to meet up, and you would do some like fun games, and just a place to see kids at night, because you were just used to seeing them during the daytime. So we went into the Campus Life meeting one night, and they had me and a pretty girl. We were playing a game, and the game was to eat 3 bananas, and you had to be blindfolded while you was eating the bananas. So eating bananas in the dark. And I've never been a gay man, you know, or I've never been a blind monkey. But I can imagine that both of those types of people have had similar experiences to this. And so they blindfolded you, and they blindfolded me, and they blindfolded the young lady. And I was like nervous because I didn't really do a lot of stuff with pretty girls. So even just being close to this pretty girl, it was like, you know, everybody was looking at me and her in the same time. And I was just like, oh. And I think I was only in 7th grade, and some of the other kids were in 8th and 9th grade. So, you know, there was those levels of nerves as well, the older kids, and, you know, they know more and they're smarter and cooler and blah, blah. Well, they blindfold us, and we have to eat the bananas as fast as we can. So I start eating. And I've always enjoyed fruits. You know, my whole life, when I think back on my life, I've always really enjoyed a good fruit. I used to enjoy watching my brother eat oranges. My brother used to eat a lot of oranges. He'd get him a little sack of oranges and just eat them sometimes, and I would enjoy just even watching him eat them because we didn't do a lot of things together as a family that were peaceful. Most of the times we would fight. So I found a lot of joy just watching my brother, you know, tap into them vitamin C balls. Well, so here I am, I'm gumming down these bananas, and I get through all 3. I swallow, people are cheering and laughing and everybody, and I take off my blindfold, and everybody else was gone. Everybody else wasn't playing the game. That's what I mean. The girl wasn't playing the game, the pretty girl. She was, the second we started, they kind of tapped her on the shoulder and quietly told her to just go back over with everybody else who was watching. So I had been eating 3 bananas in front of everybody, all my peers, by myself as fast as I could. And I had acne, and I had, suddenly all the things that were wrong with me were the only things that I could think about. You know, I just felt, you know, I had acne, and I had big ears, and you know, everything was wrong with me. My pants were too tight, and they tapered at the bottoms and looked kind of maybe like a women's pants. And I just felt horrible. I played it off that it was funny. You know, the joke was just that, I don't even know what the joke was. The joke was that, you know, everybody got to watch me eat bananas and that I was okay. You know, it was just silly. And it was. Nobody else thought anything of it. But man, I was already so insecure, and I guess I just felt even more insecure. And that was probably the most embarrassing moment of my life, you know, that I remember as a child. I'm sure there were more, but that was one that really just grew out of my balls like a damn, just like a damn white hair. You know, I remember when I was young, the first hair I ever got that grew out of my ball bag was white. And I remember just being so nervous, and my daddy was so old. You know, my daddy was, 83 or 82 when I got some hair on my balls. So I just figured it was the end of his genetics, or whatever his genetics, it was a little bit of that had kind of, dribbled down into my ball bag. And I was just so, that's how I felt, I guess. I felt like this lone white hair. And I felt like a lone white ball hair just full of potassium. And that's all. That's all the Patreon questions that we have. So I think we're going to wrap up today. I got to go to the comedy store and do a set. Ari, I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you letting me be here and helping you out. Hopefully I'm helping you, and hopefully this podcast grows to be bigger and better.
Get caught up. Their feelings and emotions and the way that they live their life gets caught up, and that's autism. And everybody's got a little bit of it, and I'm sure I had a splash hit me on the back, when I was going through the genetic caverns into the universe. And I got a touch, because I'll see a lot of times autistic kids and they flare up kind of when I come by a little. It's almost like if a dog hears something in the distance, and I'm not referring to autistic children as animals or autistic humans. I'm not doing that at all. But I'm saying that they'll have that same, you ever see like a dog, like if a dog is far away and you make a sound and the dog looks, that's a lot of time what happened with me when I get around people that have mental disabilities, because they know that the thread in me is recently removed from the quilt that they're made of, that I'm partisan to whatever they got. And I've always thought that. I've always felt a little bit on the, people say on the spectrum, but I say on the, I don't want to say on the rainbow, but I say on the water slide of autism, because it's a wild ride. But happy October, guys. Happy October 1st. Oh, wait, it's October 2nd. It's October 2nd. I'm recording this on October 1st. I hope you had a good weekend. I hope, people got into the football. We got some people that called in about that, about some of the different kneeling. A lot of unique perspectives on it. And so we're going to rifle through some of those in a little bit. We got Ari Manis coming back in. I know people hate him. Some people love him. So we're just going to figure out, we're going to try it again, a little bit of a flow. We can see how that goes. And what else is going on in my world? Recently I'll give you a sensual update. I'm in 7 days of no masturbation. And for me, that's good. And so I'm feeling pretty hopeful about that. One of my problems is a lot of times once I tell people I'm doing something, I screw it up. Like the second, I'll say that to you guys and I'll get excited. I'll get caught up in my own hope. And then it just, it's like that creates a bad recipe inside of me that then somehow I end up, looking at masturbation or touching myself. And I don't want to be doing that anymore. I don't want to be touching myself. Why? Because I'm an adult. And I've been touched. Trust me, I've been touched enough by myself. I've given myself enough easy access to my wiener and to my body. And so I think it's time sometimes to start to cage myself up from myself and have a little bit more respect for my seed. What else, dude? Oh, I watched this show, Last Chance U. I don't know if you've seen this, but I used to work over in Mississippi. I worked on a farm over there for a couple of summers in a row, 2-3 summers. They're right on the Louisiana-Mississippi border. And this show on Netflix, Last Chance U, is about mostly African-American black boys that play football at a school called Eastern Mississippi Community College. And it really kind of captures a little bit of that slow vibe that goes on in a lot of small towns. If you get a chance, man, I heavily recommend that. It's a pretty good show. This past weekend. Yeah, that October, I remember when I was young, doing Halloween was always a special time, I remember in high school eating mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms, little trip snacks, brain Mentos, basically Mentos for your soul. You pop a couple. The first time we went to get some mushrooms, I went with some kids who'd already gotten them before, and so they were fired up. And we went there, and I'd never seen as many mushrooms in my entire life, not even at a grocery. And we got probably half of a big black garbage bag full of mushrooms. And we took them to a party. And at the party, people ate them. We went inside the party, people ate them. And about an hour later, there was probably maybe 40 people at the party. An hour later, nobody was in the house, but everybody was still at the party. People were lost in the woods. People were trapped. Some people were trapped behind the swimming pool, even though there was no way to get trapped behind it because it was just a round pool. People were playing hide and go seek with themselves. 2 kids were in the bathroom and didn't know each other was in the bathroom. People were, you could just hear people's souls just jerking off in the distance. It was like, it was just like bison were just roaming through people's souls for the first time. And then Indians were showing up and hunting them. And that's what was going on. You could feel people shifting. You could feel people shifting gears mentally and emotionally at the same time when people were bent out on them mushrooms on that Halloween. And then, now we had a lot of mushrooms, so those went on for a few days and children were eating them. And I remember dressing up like Where's Waldo, and I got in a powdered sugar fight with a couple of people who I didn't know, which is fun at first, but anytime you're fighting with condiments, fun at first, violent at the end. You know what I'm saying? Crack open a packet of mustard on somebody. It's cute for about 40 seconds, and then shit escalates. You know, and next thing you know, you're trying to fucking hide chunks of relish in people's tear ducts and shit. And that's when shit escalates. But I remember a buddy of mine, this kid Todd, drank some gasoline, high on mushrooms. He was jacked up on something, you know, and he fucked up at the service station. Time Saver. The service station by us used to be called Time Saver because I guess they assumed that if you stopped there, you were going to save you a couple extra seconds. But old Todd, he really earned himself a couple of extra seconds in the hospital, days even, from drinking the gasoline. But yeah, I had good times on Halloween. I was Where's Waldo one time. I was Peppermint Pat. Another time I got jacked up on some type of uppers, and I was Peppermint Pat for Halloween. And it's really basically you take some long johns that are the pants, and you take the long john shirts, which is just kind of the same material as the pants, but it's a shirt, and you sew peppermints to it. Just tie the peppermints, you know, all over it. Get you a little hat, like a little beanie hat, hook a few peppermints onto that, and suddenly you get a cane, like a cane for a grandparent, and you paint it red and white stripes, and suddenly you fucking Peppermint Pat, you know? And it's not even a character, but it is a character. And people are like, who are you? And it's like, I'm Peppermint Pat. You know what I'm saying? Let me hide a little bit of this mint up in that ass. You feel me? Let me breath freshen that crotch. You feel me? So that was another costume that I had. I remember this story, man. This is the first time that I knew. When I was young, my father lived with us, and my father was really old, you know. And so we would go trick-or-treating, and my mother would take us. And my mother had worked all day, you know, and so she got home, and she was a lot of time frustrated. And my dad would stay home. Excuse me, I have to clear my throat. A lot of times you hear me clear my throat. You hear me, I make that sound because I got a big lip. You know, I got that, what is it? I got that sashimi, that tuna sashimi for the bottom lip. And so a lot of water and a lot of coagulates bunch up down there in the bottom of my lip. You know, I'm kind of Bubba Gumping down there. And so, you know, a lot of time water build up right there. And I'd probably make a pearl if you gave me enough time. I'd probably make a pearl in my mouth. I bet when I die, if the last person who comes by my body just pulls my lip down, they might find them a beautiful, geological treat right there. And that's going to be a pearl because I got them coagulates. You know, my mouth kind of flows into this place where there's no way for the water to escape. So anyway, that's what I'm going on. If you hear me making sounds, that's the sounds I'm making. Because people sometimes will call in or email. Some guy emailed one time, I can't listen to the podcast anymore. You know, he's always drinking your own spit. That's what he accused me of doing, drinking my own spit. What are you talking about, dude? Like I'm an orphan in the Sahara? What do you mean drinking my own spit, dude? I'm not going to drown, bro. I'm not going to drown so you can have an easily listening atmosphere. You know? So every time you hear me making that sound, know I'm surviving. Okay? That I want to be at other stages of my life. You know, I'm not going to have my brother be at my funeral and say, oh, my brother drowned out because he didn't want to swallow his spit. Because he had shame about it. I'm sorry. You know, different people make different sounds. Go put your ear up to your stepmother. I bet she sounds like a piece of shit. Maybe. Some people's stepmoms are decent. Anyhow, onward. So I remember we had Halloween, and my father would stay home, and my father was old. At that time, he was 76 years old, maybe 75. And my mother would take us trick-or-treating. And I didn't realize at that time yet that my father was old. I knew that he was like physically slower, but I guess I didn't realize, I didn't really realize how he saw me. I didn't realize how he envisioned me or looked at me or if he did any differently because of his age. And I remember we went trick-or-treating with my mom, and my brother and I got in a fight. So we were Raggedy Ann and Andy. And both of us, we both started out as Andy, and then my brother beat my ass enough where I kind of looked more like a Raggedy Ann. And not, just my eye paint had gone out, my hair was sprayed out, and my Raggedy Ann outfit was all busted up, looked more like a dress. So at that time, I was showing up back at my door like a real bitch, you feel me? And so we get back to our house, we go on trick-or-treating, and we had a pretty decent time. And it was my mother with the 4 children, my sister in a stroller. And we get back there, and my brother and I run up to the door. And my father came to the door, and he looked at us. And he got the candy bowl and just said, take what you want, And that's when he didn't realize it was us. He didn't realize it was his own children. And that was like the first moment that, like, I guess I realized that maybe my dad just couldn't relate to me that well, even just because of his age. Like, he just didn't, maybe dads forget. I mean, my dad had just seen me, an hour earlier when I left, my brother and I wearing our costumes and stuff. But I remember getting back to the door, and he didn't know it was us. And I just remember feeling this disconnect immediately. It wasn't like a feeling of pain, but it was this feeling immediately where I understood where we were in relation to each other. Like, I knew immediately there was this divide where he just didn't, there may be, like, he could confuse me with other kids, that, he didn't remember things that well, that there was just this, immediately there was this element that, and probably at that age too, that, he didn't recognize me, there was probably a lot of fear that set in, like, internally then, this feeling that, maybe he couldn't protect me or something if he didn't know I was his own. There might have been some, nocturnal, animalistic vibes going on. But that was one moment that it really shook me, and I was like, wow, my dad he's old. He doesn't know that my brother and I standing here, who don't have masks on, who have, like headbands that have like yarn and stuff and are looking a certain way, that he doesn't realize that we're his sons. And that was kind of a wild moment for me, not to bring down the town. I'm not trying to drown the town here in inner salt water. I'm not trying to, put the saline in your eye holes, but yeah, it just reminded me of that. That was another thing that happened at Halloween. Well, let me think of some other Halloweens that I went to. They had this. My mother had a station wagon, and a station wagon was something that it was like a van, but for straight up real ass moms. It was like a SUV. It was like the original SUV. Like, now they got these SUVs with all this room and this and that. The station wagon, that thing was like 50 feet long. Like, your mom could be driving and you could be so far in the back that you were a couple minutes behind her in time. Like, if you'd have asked your mother what time it was, she would have said 11:44. And if somebody would have asked you what time it was, you'd have said 11:41, because you were living in the past. That back seat was so far. And man, it was fun in that station wagon, You could talk all the smack that your mother could never reach you. These SUVs, they got reachable children in them. You could catch an ass whooping if your mother got long arms, if your mother's Nigerian, you know? If your mother's from Kenya, you might get your ass beat, even if you're just sitting into the back. But with that dude, with the station wagon, man, your mother could put you in there. You could be back there so long you could start a family, you know? She opened the door. Next time she opens the door, you pop out with a husband and just freshly back a tan because you just got back from your honeymoon. It was that kind of thing, man. Felt like you were back there forever in your own universe. And I loved my mother's station wagon. But on Halloween, she would put the tailgate down, and we'd get a couple of local kids, and we would stand on the back of the tailgate and hold on to this bar. The tailgate was down. We'd stand on that and hold on to this bar that was at the top of the station wagon. And my mother would drive. She'd take us to the nice neighborhoods so you could get that candy, you know? Because rich people had the candy. I mean, you showed up at some poor people's house, people, you know, I remember this one dude, what was that guy's name? Cutman, Mr. Cutman. He would blow weed smoke in your face and blow drug smoke at you. And that was his big Halloween thing. So when we were young, we didn't get into that much. But as we got a little bit older, it was fun to hit his door because he'd crack that door and just blow you a hit of that dope smoke at you. You know, trick or treat, boy. That shit was trick or trauma, dude. One year, that shit hit me right in the nostrils, dude. And I was bent out. You know, I was bent out. Boy, I was ghosting, dude. I had Goonies in my head, bruh. Hey, you thoughts. I had Goonies in my head, man. But that was a good time, I remember. And so anyway, we'd be on the station wagon. And that tailgate would be down. My mother would be cruising. And the fun thing to do when you saw that open yard coming up was to run and jump off like we were in the Air Force, you know, 101st Airborne Division. And no offense if I'm getting that wrong. I don't want to offend anybody or in that sense. But you get what I'm saying. We'd run and jump right off that tailgate and, all right, all right, all right, all right, you know. Somebody throw my sister off, you know. And everybody just hitting the grass, and then everybody would get up and make sure they had all their candy. Half the candy roll out into the yard, but it was dark. You didn't know. You'd get your bag and run to the door. Then you'd hit a string of houses and then get back on the tailgate and off around to the next street. You know, mother would go around, and we'd jump off, you know. So this one boy, man, one time we're going, man, and my buddy Danny, and I've talked about him before, and he, you know, very slender neck. I mean, his neck, if it was made out of anything, it was turkey bacon. And so he was long, you know, and long people, they're out there. You're more likely to catch a cold. My dad always told me you're more likely to catch a cold when you're long because there's more of you. You know, if I'm only 20 inches tall, there's only 20 inches of me where a cold can land. But if I'm 27 inches tall, I'm a little longer, then those molecules or those, you know, those viral antibodies or bodies that are floating around, they can land. There's more room for them to land, you know. Like I'm telling you, it's easier to land on Saturn than it is on Pluto because there's more space. That's what I'm saying. So my boy Danny was long. And he went running off, and we were, we're jumping off that tailgate, hitting the yard, you know, rolling over, running up. And Danny goes running, dude, jumped, and literally landed right onto a fire hydrant that was in somebody's yard, man. And I heard a sound come out of that boy. It didn't come out of his voice box. It was almost like his bone marrow just let out a fucking shriek. Like his bone marrow let out a shriek. And that's when I knew that nighttime was dangerous, man, and that the devil lurked sometimes on Halloween. He was never the same. He was never the same before that. But he was double never the same. After he just jumped sheer darkness and just caught that fire hydrant just to the whole neck and body, you know. And the crazy thing is you could pop that hydrant open and run water across him forever and he would never get back to normal. But it is fall, it is autumn, and happy Halloween to you guys. We're going to be right back. Just a second. I got Ari Madison's studio. I got just a new way we're going to use them. I got a plan. Bear with me. We got a few calls that came in about the NFL. We got a guy who's got some pubic hair reconfiguration something. And we got a couple more things. We'll be right back. Just give me 1 second because somebody just rang the doorbell. I got to see who it is. All right. But yeah, it's that time of year. It's the time of year where things are fresh. October, I think, is a great month to rattle off the things you want to get done that have been plaguing you all year. Set a few goals. Knock them out before turkey time and before Christmas. Because if you put stick your neck out a little. Now stick it out a little bit further. What do you hear? I'll tell you what you fucking hear, boy and girl. You hear a turkey with a jingle bell around his neck. And that's holidays coming fast, dude. And if you don't think the holidays are coming fast, go outside. Bend over. And I'll tell you this, before you know what's going on, you will have a damn pilgrim with a fucking sack full of new toys hiding in your ass. Because that's what I'm telling you, the holidays are coming quick. And we got a great episode for you guys, man. I'm excited. I didn't have that crazy of a weekend, so I'm just going to kind of leave that right there. You know, I spent some time. I go to therapy on Monday, so I'm ready to spend some time with my therapist. I'm trying to get, through tonight's episode so that I can get some rest and be prepared. Sometimes I go to this therapy session, I'm not prepared, but I go to adult therapy for males because I ain't no wuss. And if you're having problems, you feeling some emasculation issues, I want you to hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. I want you to hit the hotline with some of the ways that you're feeling as a man. If you're having a tough time being a man, it could be in any facet. Hit the hotline. You don't even need to leave your name if you don't want to, but just make sure your story's real. We got some great calls that came in. We got a couple people calling about taking a knee, the NFL. We got a couple of amazing perspectives on that. We're talking about why we don't have camels in America. We're talking about a follow-up call from a gentleman who, we talked about it last week about what would the price be that you would let your loved one get out there and do sex with a stranger, an expensive stranger, a stranger that's got some money, the rich. How much would you just let the rich just plow into your loved one? And we got a call that came in about that. We got some great calls. A man got hair transplants from a place you probably wouldn't even expect. And you heard the doorbell a little bit ago. That's going to be Ari Manis is going to be back here, and he's going to be in studio. But the time when he's not in here, he's not in here. This is our time. And this isn't a time that I share with him. This is our time. And the time when I tell you he's not in here, he's not in here. So I just want that to be known. A couple of other things before we move on in the program. I want to let you know that I am headlining the Hollywood Improv October 10th at 8 p.m. We can do about 45 minutes. Hot new material, cool stuff. You're going to love it. You can find those tickets on my website, theovon.com. As well, I got the Hampin' Ain't Easy. The tour shirts are available now at theovon.com/store. And those have all the tour dates on it from this past year. It's kind of a neat shirt. It's a few dollars pricier because I had to get a couple extra colors put on it. But it's a cool shirt, man. And I think it's nice to have. If you want to get that, you can go get it. It has every city that I performed in this past year. And what else? Oh, I got a new series that's going to be, that we're working on a pilot for Comedy Central. So I'm excited about that. There's no money in it yet, but it's going to be a neat opportunity. And it's all a little bit based on this podcast, so that's kind of exciting. But I just want to thank you guys for being here with me today. Happy Monday, or whatever day it is this week you're listening. And we're going to be right back. We're going to have Ari Manis in studio. We're going to check on him briefly, hit a couple of news topics, and then you and I are going to get back to some of your calls. I'll be right back. This past weekend, All right, and that is everything that you need to know. Also, if you want to support the Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/TheoVon, TheoVon. Options on there to donate. Thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. I really appreciate it, allowing me to get a new camera. And eventually the goal is to come out with a Thursday episode that better reflects responses from Monday's episode. But with that said, here's a couple of thoughts.
About Ari, I'd say keep him on. He seems like a good dude. The one thing I would say, though, is just maybe have him be a little bit funnier.
Hey, Theo, this is Ivan. Love your show. As far as Ari is concerned, for someone that you want to have with you all the time, just pick someone that you enjoy being around and someone who's professional.
Be a little bit funnier. Be a little bit funnier.
I don't know why that did that.
You did that. You edited that.
I would never do that.
You did do that. You're lying.
No,
you're lying to me, and you're lying to all your fans.
There's a glitch, I think.
That was not a glitch.
Okay, fine. There wasn't a glitch, man. Those are two comments that just there's a couple of calls that I got in, and I didn't.
You said we weren't going to bring up comments again. You said we were just going to skip past that and just go into the podcast. You said we're not going to talk about it anymore.
We weren't.
But then you just played it.
Yeah, it's on the play sheet.
Yeah, but you said to me before, I said, hey, are we going to keep going over the negative comments, or are we just going to move on? And you said, oh, yeah, no, we're past that.
We are past it.
And then you just brought it up again.
But I wanted to make sure you're past it.
I was until you just brought it up again. Now I'm back in it. I mean, the funnier thing, fine. Comedy's subjective.
Yes.
That guy didn't think I was funny. Some guys didn't.
That guy,
Some people did, some people didn't. The professional thing, first off, I feel like I'm a professional. And then secondly, you making that little mixtape. That's a mixtape. You made an Ari hate mixtape.
Okay, that's
my friend, Theo Vaughn, made an Ari hate mixtape.
It's not a hit. It's a remix of a couple of albums.
Okay, a remix. You made an Ari hate remix.
Okay.
Which makes me think that you think I'm unprofessional.
No.
Do you think I'm unprofessional?
Not at all. That's why I was going to actually, if you'd let me gather my thoughts a little bit, I was going to contradict what some of these guys were saying.
I don't think you were.
Really?
No.
What do you think? I was going to let you just drown out there in the dirty water?
Just letting me out here to drown. That's okay. No. I guess that's what people want these days for entertainment.
No, I mean, look, it's very Rome. It's very Rome these days in the podcast world. They want to see you get killed by a lion or fight 1,000 squirrels. There were some men that if they didn't have a lion, they would get thousands of squirrels to fight men. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's crazy too.
You're not pulling that out of something you think might be true?
No, not at all. It's a real thing.
All right. Cool.
Well, here he is, guys. Ari Manis right here. And what I want to say is what's going on in Ari's world. I just want to do a check-in with Ari. So,
life's good. Me and my girlfriend, we made up.
Yeah. Last we checked, you guys had just made love after the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, we had gotten back together at the Grand Canyon. Things were a little shaky. I think we're on good terms. We went to San Diego together.
Oh, that's cool. What was the occasion?
Past weekend. It was my younger brother Jonah's birthday, and I lined up some shows as well. So I was doing some comedy and was going to visit my 17-year-old. I'm 18 now. He just turned 18. And so we celebrated by going to the whorehouse in Tijuana, Mexico.
Really?
Yeah, the Hong Kong. You ever been there?
I've never been there.
Well,
Did you take Jonah?
No. Jonah stayed behind, even though he is allowed to go. Now he's 18. In Mexico, 18, you're allowed to fuck whores.
Oh, you're allowed to get murdered at 7 or 8.
You're allowed to do anything.
Yeah.
But no, this was just me, my girlfriend, and one of my buddies, another comedian who was on the show.
Okay.
And so we went, and I've been there 4 or 5 times now. I love the place. You just go there, $80. You could just have your way with a woman of your choice.
Wow. And now, do you feel any emotional repercussions from that? Do you walk out of there feeling like, this isn't good for me, or this isn't good for my psyche, or something like that? Or you just feel?
Honestly, the first time I walked out of there, I felt it was cool. It was like, I can't believe this place exists.
Yeah.
Because, prostitution here exists, but it's this really shady,
Yeah, it's
internet,
secretive.
secret, grimy, dangerous, maybe.
Yeah, it's like you gotta like
field,
hide in a recycling bin and just wait till some kind of
Yeah, there's you
pussy
tiptoe
wanders
around
by,
it.
yes.
They're not called prostitutes; they're called escorts. There's all these rules.
Yeah.
and they do a background check. Here, it's this legal establishment. Nice establishment, in fact. Very
now, when you
clean.
walk in, what is it like? Is it like a CVS? Is it like a
It
Ready Med?
feels-
Is it like a 24-hour medical center? Like, what vibe is it?
It's kind of just like the nicest strip club I've ever been to. I've only been to a couple strip clubs
Okay.
in the U.S.
And is it well lit? How's the lighting in there?
It's lit kind of like a bar, so it's not super bright, but it's not dark. You could definitely see around. There's $4 beers. There's 3 stories. There's jacuzzis. There's stripper poles. There's women. There's people drinking. There's parties, bachelor parties, friends hanging out at tables, drinking beers. And so you walk in there, and there's just all these women lined up and down the place. Probably, I'd say, over 100.
Can you smell crotch in the air when you walk in there? Honestly, be honest. You don't have to.
You don't smell crotch. What you smell is
Cleaner?
Cleaner, yeah, cleaning
Wow.
products. And it's I forget the name of it, but there's.
Is it scented in any way, like orange cleaner products, or is it just basic cleaning,
I think it's
government
just-
type of cleaning
I think
products?
it's basic Mexican government cleaning products.
Okay,
because
it's
it
probably something
smells a
lime or
little
something.
different than the cleaning
Limon, maybe.
products here.
Yeah.
It smells like 99-cent store cleaning product.
Right. So it smells like you're just
Lower end cleaning product.
Right. Maybe the cleaning products aren't as good, but the people who are doing the cleaning work harder.
Yeah, they were good. It felt clean.
Right.
And there was no part of me while I was there that was thinking this place is gross.
Because in America, you get a $3 Windex or a Shine X or whatever. It's $3, but the person doing the work's putting in $1 worth of effort.
That's right.
But down in Mexico, you get $1 worth of product,
Yeah.
but you get $3 worth of effort.
I think I never thought about that, and you're spot on with that. So you go in there and you do it, and I've been there 3 or 4 times.
Now, were you nervous when you walk in? Because I would be extremely nervous in there.
I was only nervous this time because I'm with my girlfriend now.
Okay.
And she says she's cool with it. She's like, I don't care. They're just prostitutes. They're not cheating on me if we go here. She was thinking she would get into it. She goes, I'd be down to watch you have sex with a prostitute.
Wow.
And I think that could be, kind of hot and fun.
Yeah.
So we
that's
go
very,
in there.
It's very Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri. And that's swinger country if you never spent time on
Yeah,
Lake
I
of
didn't
the
know what you were
Ozarks.
referring to.
Oh, yeah. There's a good, I wandered into a swingers weekend up there one time on accident.
Yeah, did you partake?
No, I couldn't do anything. I could watch the bingo that they played, and then I wasn't supposed to get in the elevator from like 11 to 1 a.m. because it was basically just like a fuck trolley just going up and down the building. But I did press the button one time and the doors opened, and there was just a brother in there just putting down the hammer on some older white women. But anyway, go on.
So we go in there. She's drinking a little bit more than me.
Okay.
She gets sauced up, which made me think she's uncomfortable.
But yeah.
And that made me a little uncomfortable. And I kind of just got this vibe that she was just pretending to be into this whole experience.
Your girlfriend?
To be cool. Yeah, to be the cool girlfriend.
Of course.
That is letting me have sex with a prostitute. So I didn't end up doing it.
Yeah.
I ended up not partaking.
Did it feel like a gang? Like, because at that point, when you say that, the cool girlfriend that's letting me have sex with a prostitute, that makes me think like gang. Like somebody that's in a gang. Like
No.
Latin
Like she's in a
Kings.
gang?
No, like you, this is all some type of gang type of. That seems like something that happens in gangs. Like I'm gonna bang your friend. You stay here.
Huh.
You have this snack or something, and I'm gonna bang your friend. Like
Sounds like you know more about gangs than I do.
But there's like
know.
initiation
Yeah.
type stuff, and the girls probably play along with stuff to seem
Oh.
cool and comfortable.
Yeah, it just felt like maybe because we were on weird terms from our last fight, and she wanted to be like,
who takes their
make it
girlfriend
up.
to the gets in a fight at the Grand Canyon, and to make up for it, takes them down to a hooker house in Tijuana.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. I've talked about hookers on stage. Sometimes she knows I had been there. I'm open about my life. And
Did anybody there know you when you got there?
No, but I did actually see one of the prostitutes I had prior experiences with, but she did not remember me at all or seem
Really?
to notice me.
And did you tell your girlfriend you'd been with that woman?
I did.
Wow.
I said I got that one last time. And she was like, "Oh, cool." And I don't think that bothered her. We're fine from this whole experience. Nothing affected our relationship from this. I think mainly, though, because I was keen enough and I picked up on the fact that she didn't really want me to do it, and she didn't really want to see that, and I felt that. So because I'm a gentleman and because I care about her, I decided, hey, I don't want to. I said, I don't really want to do this. I said, you're prettier than all these girls. You're much more beautiful, which is true. She is prettier than all those girls.
Yeah, she's a pretty lady.
And I said, we don't need to do this. We got some delicious street tacos right outside a Mexican taco truck there. And
right outside?
Yeah, right outside the whorehouse. There's this taco truck. We got a whole plate of tacos for $4.
Together?
Together, we pigged out. It was delicious.
Wow.
And then we got back to my parents' house, 4 a.m., crashed out on the air mattress, woke up, drove back here.
Unbelievable, dude.
Yeah.
It's almost like a modern-day Romeo and Juliet. You know?
Yeah, except better.
Interesting. Ari Manis. Well, I appreciate that check-in, man. I appreciate you letting us know what's going on.
Yeah.
Why don't you lead us into a couple of news categories?
All right. First category, speaking of, sex, semen-contaminated flutes might have been given to children. So the California school officials warn that several school districts in Southern California, they were flute donation, musical donation from this man, I guess, who started an organization called Flutes Across the World. And now they think that the flutes he donated in, he also jerked off onto and then gave them to kids.
Wow. I mean, that's... how are they going to know?
It said in the story they don't know how this came, how they found out, but someone found out.
But there's semen everywhere. Like, it's like when you walk into a motel or a hotel or an abandoned building, you know, when you find a stray dog, you know, like you could go look on the YouTube, man. There's people out there spending way inaccurate time with animals, you know. It's like there's semen on everything. We're made out of semen. When you think about it.
We're from it.
Everybody wants to walk around and act like, you know, it's this taboo product. You know, like it's something that people are, you know, secretly bussing in from China or something, or from Korea. We're semen. You are semen, dude.
I agree with what you're saying, 100%.
So a little on a flute
but
from some kid who's even more recently of seed than us. I just, who are they going to say did it? I'm sure they'll probably say Trump did it.
No,
next.
they're saying the guy who donated the flutes did it. But
was
what
also
I'm
doing
saying,
seed. Well, you know what? That doesn't surprise me. A guy that has a bunch of flutes, yeah, seems like a guy that probably is jerking off on the stuff. First of all, if you know anybody that has more than one flute, I'd phone them in right now, bro. And the number to call for that is 911.
I say you get what you pay for. They took these free flutes.
Yeah.
They're free flutes.
Yeah.
You can't be complaining about if you don't want semen on your flutes, then buy brand new flutes on Amazon. But if you're going to take these donated flutes, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, that's the thing. You want a handful of free marbles, dude? They smell like the inside of my ass. You know what? That's life, dude, and that's God's plan for us right now. All right.
That's the news, man. Speaking
of that, that's the news. Let's get into one call right here while we got Ari Manis in studio. Here we go. And the number is 985-664-9503. You can always hit the hotline with any thoughts, comments, concerns, or questions. Let's tap into this right here.
What up, dude? The name's Jeff Toy.
Jeff Toy. Asian? Jeff Toy?
You're thinking of Joe Coy.
From Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky. Just wanted to let you know that I, too, had a hair removal procedure.
This is in response to the hair transplant that I got almost 14 days ago.
I kid you not, man, but it wasn't on my dome. It was on my face. So, you know, I have a hard time growing a beard. I got that engine in me.
And that means Native American. I don't think he's talking about Hemi. But he, and I know what he's talking about, actually. There's part on my throat, it's almost like a choke mark where I swear my mother choked me when I was young that will not grow hair.
Yeah, I can't grow a full beard.
Yeah, so that thing is way shoddy, dude.
Okay, well, no.
And that's actually
keep bringing me down.
My bad, dude. Yeah. You know what? It doesn't look that bad.
It looks like scruff. Some chicks like that.
Yeah, it looks like you've been kind of living in New York, but outdoors.
Yeah.
In my family, and so I can't grow a lot of facial hair.
Okay, Guy. Well, let's get to it.
So, you know, if you grow like a chin beard or a neck beard, you know, the hairs are a little greasy. Chin beard and neck beard look a lot like pubes. They do. And so I'm actually going through the procedure right now of getting some pubes, because I got plenty of those, transported to my face. Now, I'm a little worried, though, and I asked for your prayer request. Just want to let you know that you're not alone in this, and God bless you.
Wow. He took it to the Lord at the end. And I've been at Halloween before where we needed beards and stuff, and we would cut off pubes and each other's pubes because some people had better stock, and use that to make our beards and mustaches for Halloween, outfits. What do you think about this, Guy? What do you think about this, Ari, about getting that transplant?
If this is real, to me that sounds like a prank phone call.
Really?
But
I thought about it. I don't think it does.
So you think it's real. So if he's really getting his pubes to his neck, he's transplanting his pubes and moving them to his neck, I think there's a bigger issue. Why is he so insecure about not being able to grow a beard?
Right.
Just shave your face. Just don't be a beard guy. Just be a shaven man.
I mean, it's just an old prison trick. Like, in prison, a lot of times, if you read a lot of these old, like, prison diaries and stuff, and you can get a lot of these on the deep web, which is just like they've digitized prison diaries, and you can read about the things they did at Halloween. And a lot of the things they did was use different types of body stuff that they had, even dandruff that they would collect all year, to make different types of costumes and stuff like that, you know. So it's pretty interesting to hear, you know. Like a guy would be like, Tony Montana, but it would be like, 4 or 5, 6 people's dandruff that he would use to make the cocaine stream coming out of his face. And it's almost spookier that way. When you leave the house with 4 people's dandruff glued to your cheek.
Yeah, that's scary as shit.
And your cousin, and a pubic mustache made out of that your cousin grew for you. That's Rochester, New York right there.
Be a little bit funnier.
Oh, this is broken again.
It's not broken. Okay.
Be a little bit funnier.
God.
All
right.
I guess I forgive you. Thanks for having me on, buddy.
You bet. Ari Manis, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll be right back in just a second with, we're going to get into the rest of these calls. We got some great ones. This past weekend. Okay, and we are back with Ari Manis is out of here. I think we're just going to continue to try this for another week at least, see how it fits with Ari. I liked him. I like checking in with his life to see what's going on, and I like having a couple of news segments that I don't have to think about and prepare, so it can be kind of fresh to me. But let's get into some of your calls. We had a lot of great calls about the NFL. And a lot of great calls about the sitting, taking a knee, the national anthem issues, and I thought a little bit more about it over this past week, and I think everybody did, because it's something that's that's in the air, and certainly in the past few years I found myself thinking a lot more like, what are my thoughts innately and feelings innately towards people that are different than me? Where do I stand? What do I think? What do I feel? I find myself doing that more, and I think that that's great. Awareness is eventually key in every aspect of your life. But what I'm also noticing is, and hearing about, that the take a knee thing was very vague. It was like, okay, well, we're upset at racial injustice. Then we're upset at Trump. And then we're like, it's a police brutality. It was like, well, what's it for? I understand it's for different things, but it was just, this is the first year that I really felt like it was, it just seemed, because it almost started to make it so that the awareness stuff is starting to lose some of its effect. That's what I felt like. Because every week and every day, if you keep saying, oh, this is about awareness, this batch of cupcakes is about Black Lives Matter, this casserole is for DACA repeal, it gets to be overwhelming so that nothing is for anything. Because if you're saying that everything is something, then nothing is for anything. It's like it just wears it out. And I think people are starting to get worn out. And I've noticed from different friends of mine that there seems to be this vibe that people are just tired of hearing constantly about blame. If you want to blame white people forever about the issues of the world, then you can start in Britain. The humanity's civilization apparently began in Africa and Egypt, I think. So if you want to go all the way back to there, keep on going. We can keep cruising through the history books. And you want to blame it on 2 organisms in a desert that got hit by lightning? Or you want to blame it on 2 monkeys that met in the woods? Or you want to blame it on Adam and Eve? I mean, at a certain point, you're just going to keep, at a certain point, we just have to look at where we are. And we have to look at what role we are also currently playing in our own problems. Because that's some of the issue that I start to have personally is, well, yeah, I know that there's issues in America where there are racial injustices. I know that some people don't have as good of opportunities as other people. I know those things. I think that most people want to fix them, but and are happy to find ways to do that. But if someone just constantly just yells, everything is wrong, at a certain point, they're not helping, I don't feel like. They're not helping to be part of the solution. So I guess I'm just trying to be a little bit more solution-oriented. And also, what role do you play in your own problems? Yes, there's tons of problems in the Black community, but there's also some of those problems are problems that the Black community needs to help solve needs to at least work together with other people to solve for themselves. Not everything is white people's fault. If you are, and I hate to use black and white just as the only example, but that's just like the biggest example that's going on right now. But I just hate to see activism get diluted by being overused. And maybe that's naive of me to think that that's not even possible. And I'm open, if that's the case, then I'm open to be corrected there. But I just hate to see, it's not like the boy who cried wolf. It's just like the wolf keeps crying boy. It's like the wolf just says, boy, 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 boy. And there's never any real communication between the boy and the wolf. It's just the wolf keeps yelling boy. And at a certain point, it's like you can't hear the wolf yelling boy anymore, because they just won't stop yelling it. And you think that the wolf may have autism. And that's how we came back full circle on autism. And people say, well, Theo, you can't talk about autism. Guess what? If I show up on the spectrum, then I can. And if you want to put me to a test, I'll take it any day of the week, dude. You can blindfold me and put both my hands under a baby's ass and put a number 2 pencil in my mouth, and I'll fucking take that test with my tongue. And you'd be like, well, I don't know if you have autism. Well, only an autistic person could do that. So check yourself. Let's get to some of your thoughts and feelings right here. Here we go. On the NFL Take a Knee.
You were talking about taking a knee for the anthem during football games. Now, I don't really see what taking a knee during a football game has anything to do with police brutality. So I don't really see the connection of the protest. However, as far as what my opinion is on them actually taking a knee, I think as a country, we shouldn't demand patriotism from people.
Oh, it's interesting. Interesting thought. Patriotism, you can't demand that out of somebody that they care about America. That's true. To me, that feels unfortunate that they don't, but it feels true that we shouldn't be able to demand it. Onward.
demanding patriotism from people is the sort of thing that the Nazis and the Soviets used to do. Now, if someone feels a general dissatisfaction with their nation and doesn't think that their nation deserves patriotism from them, then I kind of support their right to do that. However, at the same time, I kind of think the whole kneeling for the anthem thing doesn't really send the message of a protest against police brutality. Okay? And I love the podcast.
Yeah, it just seemed a little vague. It seemed a little vague as to what was going on and what was happening. But yeah, you can't demand patriotism. I mean, he's right. That's how a lot of, evility gets started in the world. You would hope that people have it, but I guess we're just in such a diverse and different and a time now where some people have it and some people don't. Maybe America's such a melting pot now where a lot of places you don't see that much patriotism. I'll be honest, here in Los Angeles, I don't see it very much. I can go seek it out. On Veterans Day, I can go to the cemetery, or on the 4th of July, I can go to an event. But otherwise, you don't see a lot of American flags here in Los Angeles. I think maybe some places are just so diverse, where some people, they don't care about America first even. I mean, I think some people do, but there's also a vibe in some places where they don't, and that's okay. Some people look at America almost as like an airport, it seems like, for the rest of the world, where you can come here and you can live here and you can shop here and you can get a hotel here and stay here. And then you can go back on to wherever, you care about more. I think that's a vibe in some places. But I think you just have to find a place then that reflects a little bit more of what you desire. Because then you can live in a reality that is a little more comfortable for you. I think you still should recognize that there are these other realities out there, though. But I don't think there's anything wrong with living in one where you think you're best suited for. All right, let's go on to another call here.
Theo, hey, it's Logan, doing some weird stuff down here.
Okay, Logan, thank you for calling, doing some weird stuff down here. I don't know what that is, but I appreciate you checking in with us. Onward.
So you were asking about comments about the kneeling, and I thought I might try a different angle, see what you had to say. So a lot of times people want to, it seems America is mostly about convenience.
About convenience, he's saying. Go ahead.
So, you don't see people standing up at the bar when the national anthem comes on. You don't see people standing up at home when the national anthem comes on. I'm not necessarily going to comment on the exact kneeling, aside from I don't really disagree with it. I'm kind of in the neutral zone. Can't really do much harm. It's up to the owners. I mean, it's up to the owners and the advertisers. It's not my fight. They're using their field.
Okay, so he's saying that these players, if their owners are allowing them, the team owners are allowing them to do that, then, and that's where they want to use their stance to show uniformity and take a knee, then that's where they can do it. That it's up to the owners. And in the end, that's really true. I think if a lot of those owners started saying, you're not going to get a paycheck, I wonder how those people would adjust. Because there's a lot of people in Los Angeles who, were probably afraid to say that they were Trump supporters or were voting for Trump because afraid they would lose their jobs. Or in most of America or in different places, and vice versa. I'm sure there were a lot of people, in other places that were afraid to say that they were Hillary supporters or they would lose their jobs. And that's unfortunate. I think that we're at a point where people, don't want to or can't, that we can't even be open to other people's perspectives and ideas. I think if it's a dangerous perspective or idea, we can totally not accept it. But I think you still have to find ways to be able to hear it and to be open to it, because you might learn, you might change your mind. and change, I think, is always good. Even if you just change your mind a little bit and take a little piece of what they know or their perspective. I'm grateful right here because I'm thinking about some different perspectives because you guys are calling in with them. But that's true. He's also saying, like, how big of people at bars aren't standing up and doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Could you imagine that if everybody in a bar? Now, in some countries, they may. I feel like if you get to some of these other countries, you're at an Irish bar or something and it's a soccer game, that they might really get down and put that hand on the chest. But I don't think that they're doing that here in America. But then that's part of the being at the game. It's like when you're at the event, that's where people do it. But I'm also thinking, like, I'm feeling that even after a week or so of this going on, that people are starting to lose. They almost just don't care what these players do, and not because they're black or not because they're white or because they're Latino. And it's only a few Asian players, I believe, but just because they're just. It's getting hack. It's getting old. It's getting old without us having more of a direction for solution. And I think that it's getting old just pointing fingers and not pointing the finger also at oneself to figure out how can we better, how can we better achieve the successes that we want in America. All right, let's grab another call on Take a Knee. Here we go.
Hey, Theo, this is Brant from Tacoma, Washington.
Hey, Brant, I appreciate you calling, brother. Tacoma. Now, that is outside of Seattle, probably about maybe 15 miles, and that is a little bit of cowboy country. And if you like pine trees and evergreens and cowboys at the same time, you can get that in Tacoma. Now, sometimes people think of Seattle, that's fish country. And that's up there. People, they got men even breastfeeding children and people shaving their chest hair and making wallets out of them and all that kind of stuff. A bunch of dream catcher addicts and people, eating homemade cinnamon made out of their own, skin flakes and flavors out of nature. But if you get outside of Seattle, not even far, Tacoma is a little more cowboy country. So they might have fish out there, but they call it water cattle. That's what they call fish over there in Tacoma. They call it water cattle because that's the livestock of that salty H2O. All right, onward.
I have a comment about the NFL players kneeling before the game for the anthem. I think it's definitely another issue where the media is having another tool to exploit division in America. I think there's a lot of that going on right now. You can see it in the local news. You'll get some polls of people that are going to boycott teams, and half of them are saying they're going to boycott the season and the team, and half of them say that they aren't.
And that's a good point. Like, the media doesn't even, if you notice with these polls now, it's half and half. A lot of the polls, it's always half and half. Really? That's striking. Because if they can keep it half and half, then they can keep it, then they can make it seem divided. And that's just interesting, man. It used to be a poll was a real poll. And not since the election have I trusted any polls. I don't care who the poll is from. Because the problem is the people taking the polls and the people running the polling companies, the friends or whoever they're even polling, they don't even, those people are just like people. A buddy of mine runs a network here in Los Angeles, and he's telling me that, the first thing we do when we want to see if a show is good, we take it downstairs and we ask everybody who works in our company. Yeah, but 98% of the people working in your company have gone through the same schools or, friends of who are already in the company got them the job. It's like just asking the same person. That's why I feel like taking polls where you don't have an accurate group to take them from just doesn't end well. But yeah, it's kind of fascinating that polls are always 50-50 now, and that behooves the media the most because it keeps people arguing. And that's not every case. I understand that. Onward.
It's a 50-50 divide, similar to what you're seeing with bipartisan affiliation and what people are doing there. You have the Charlottesville issue and just a lot of division in America right now, in the U.S. And the media is highlighting it. You know, the media is supposed to be a tool that helps inform us, but it's certainly changed into something different to where it's entertainment and it's ruining people and it's giving us all false impressions of what's actually going on.
That's true. It's a good point. You know, and I feel most bad. I appreciate you calling. And these are some good points. And I feel most bad, and that's not the right term, but I can't think of it right now. I feel most bad for seniors who are older, who are in hospice, who are, maybe their spouses passed away, left for heaven or wherever. And they've always thought that the world was a good enough place. And they thought that maybe they're leaving the world better for their children, or that they raised their kids right their whole life, or did the best they could. We'll say that. And then now here you have, and they don't realize that the news has turned into this, that the media has turned into this element that's not reliable, that's not just sharing information. And that's sad. That's sad because they think that then, I bet that causes a lot of depression in them. A lot of new senior depression because suddenly the world that they thought was a better place that they were leaving behind, it probably isn't as bad, but it looks that bad and they don't know the difference. Maybe because of senility, because they're not as in touch with the vibe these days. They don't realize that, some of what the media is doing is not healthy. But I agree. The polls are 50. Let's keep them 50-50. That way things are dividing. And I think that we are better than the media makes us out to be, than the news makes us out to be. I really do. And I think that these are good times. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I had lunch with Howie Mandel a month or so ago. And, he's been a friend of me for a few years now. And he said, this was right when the Charlottesville stuff happened. And he said, I'm happy that this kind of thing is happening. And Howie's Jewish, I think at least half Jewish, if you can even just be half. But he said, I'm glad this kind of stuff is happening because now at least you know who people are. Before maybe you didn't know where the guy across the street stood. What his thoughts were, what his real feelings were. But at least now there's at least a vibe where you do know, some people are coming, feelings that have been hidden under people's brains are coming to the surface and making people think and making people act, But I appreciate that call. Let's keep it cruising here. Here we go.
Hey, Theo. Calling about the NFL players kneeling. Now, I'm coming from a place of white privilege. I'm a white dude. So obviously I had white privilege growing up. My dad was, he was the 10th of 10 children.
Ooh, 10 out of 10. Dang, boy. That's that Postmaker's dozen, boy. 10 children. Onward. Postman's dozen. Onward.
Lived in a 2-bedroom house on a clay road in Alabama.
Oh, y'all got to get asphalt, man. If you don't have any asphalt, hit up some gypsies. If you got any gypsy friends that live out there in the Midwest or whatever, they'll sell you some bad to probably decent asphalt. Onward.
When I was born, he was making minimum wage. And he was supporting my mom and 2 other kids. He suffered from depression and anxiety. He died in his early 60s from drinking and drugging. But you know what my white privilege was is when my dad told me, son, I don't care if you grow up to be a ditch digger. If you do grow up to be a ditch digger, you'd be the best damn ditch digger there is. And that's my privilege. My dad told me to work hard. What I'm afraid is happening with these NFL players. I got these young, impressionable kids looking up to these guys. They're kneeling on the field, and the message they're taking home, the message these kids are taking home is, someone's out to get me. I can't do it. Why even try? There's a whole system against me. Why should I even try?
I appreciate your call. That's an interesting take. If you're a child at home, if you're a black child, maybe even if you're a mixed child, I don't know. I mean, I'm not these children. I don't have these children. But could that affect the way, if you see, even your heroes saying that they don't have, that maybe your race doesn't have a chance, or if you catch that vibe from some of this, could that be negative for them? Could that make them not want to work as hard? It could be. It could be. I appreciate your call, and I appreciate that thought. Let's move on to another one. And look, I'm happy to have you guys' calls and thoughts here, man. This is a big topic that a lot of people had thoughts on. Here we go.
Hey, Theo. My name's Shay from Indiana.
Thank you for calling, Shay. Indiana. And actually, I just got a call recently said that Indiana was not the home of the Ku Klux Klan, that it was actually somewhere in Tennessee. So I have to look that up. Wherever it was, bummer. Onward.
I served 12 years in the Army Infantry, and
thank you for your service. Onward.
I understand protesting, and I'm not unaware of the strife that African Americans go through with police officers in certain areas, and I agree there needs to be something done. Police officers need to be vetted better, or trained better. Or, sometimes they're just putting crazy people on the streets with a gun.
Yeah, that's true, man. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. You wish that these guys got paid more. You wish that teachers and police officers and public service, those people got paid more. You also have, decades of police going into neighborhoods that are extremely scary, going into extreme high crime areas. So probably a lot of, PTSD from past experiences. I can't even imagine. In addition to racist cops, in addition to the fact that racism exists. And, there's a lot of thoughts on it. Onward.
But for me, when I see people kneeling at the anthem like that, you got to think about why we do the national anthem to begin with. Is it just an unknown ceremony? No. We're doing it to raise, to understand where you come from and the liberties and the freedoms that you have, because people did die. They lost limbs. They lost lives. They sacrificed their minds so you could live in a place like this.
That's a powerful line. They sacrificed their minds. It's a good line. Onward.
And I completely agree. We need to fix things. Things do need to be fixed. But if you're going to use your platform, use it for good, use it for positivity, and let's figure something out, and let's make people aware. Doing a senseless act by just kneeling, it just causes division and hate. But that's my high horse, or my stand. Thanks, Theo.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, it makes me. Yeah, I mean, are we helping? Is this helping? Are we finding solution? Because I don't think the media doesn't care if we find solution. If we solve the problems in the world, let me tell you who doesn't benefit. Probably the news networks. Can you imagine if the world were good and comfortable? Would we even turn the news on if we knew that everyone was doing okay? It makes you start to ask yourself, well, why do I even watch news? Am I addicted to the hatred? Am I addicted to the, to the negativity? Am I supporting it by the things I watch and the things that I, click on? I don't know. I do not know. All right, let's hear a little bit more. Let's take another call right here.
Hey, man. Why we don't have camels here in North America seems like they can live in the rest of the regular world in sand and, hot sun and just the sun burning the sand on their feet, and they can get all that water in them. I think they would do a lot better here. And
dang, bro. I appreciate the call. Yeah, why we don't have camels. Why we don't have camels here in America. That's a great question. It is. Because, you go to some of these other countries and they have camels. You go to India. Oh, you'll see a camel. Look out in the woods. You'll see a distant camel. You go to Where else? You go to Africa. Oh, they got camels out there. If you got a hat made out of reeds, made out of reed pieces of greenery, a camel will eat your hat. First thing you stand in there and you got a little bit of shade on your head. Next thing you know, the sun is hitting you and you hear something chewing nearby. And that's a camel just ate your hat. So they have camels out there. But in America, you get around here and it's not like that. And I think part of it is because we're not as natural. I mean, dude, you go to Africa, you get a rental car, they might have a fucking sloth in the trunk. You go to Nairobi and you get a pair of pants and you put them on, and they might have a couple of they might have a lizard or something in the crotch of them, an exotic lizard. So you get a lot of these different countries, you're going to see some animals. In America, you might just get a couple of pesky raccoons out there, throwing dice and fucking talking shit, and just fucking around in the garbage, making love by the garbage. We don't get as many wild animals. Now you get up into different parts out there to Montana, you might get some tigers. If you get you might get some mountain cats, even some aggressive lesbians if you hanging out by the gas station at night. Because I got accosted by a lesbian out there one time. I think it was pretty much a lesbian. Aggressive lesbians. Now, I'm not saying anything about all lesbians. This was an aggressive lesbian. Had a Dokken t-shirt on, this old band, Dokken. But they have, we don't have that natural, we don't have those camels running around, and I don't know why. I do not know why at all, but that's a great question, man. Why we don't have camels in the United States of America? Let's get them. Talk to Trump, dude. Trump will get you some fucking camels, bro. All right, let's hit another question here. Oh, and this question had to do with last week. It was if your girlfriend wanted to sleep with somebody else, if you got that offer, because someone on Snapchat last week called in with the offer they got. Let's hear this.
Theo, what's up, baby? Calling from, I'm going to keep my name out. I'm calling from Toronto, Canada.
Toronto. Almost made love to an Indian woman up there one time, or pretty much a woman of age, but just outside of that. And I went to Halloween. I celebrated Halloween up there one time with the ShamWow guy, my buddy Vince Offer. We went to a party, and he ended up meeting a white girl that I think he ended up making love to. Onward.
Canada. Just wanted to talk about last week. If you've let somebody else sleep with your girl, or vice versa, maybe your girl's letting you sleep with other chicks, whatever.
Yep, you can find that on our 925 episode. Onward.
I don't know what if I've practiced the dark arts, as you put it. You put the dark arts. I'm a proponent of the dark arts. I might be an elder. I don't know.
Okay, see you out there, man. You Edgar Allan Go, boy. Onward.
Yeah, me and my girlfriend, it started off totally healthy, as most relationships do. Everything's fun, everything's new and exciting, whatever. And as time went, you learn something about your girl. She's a freak. My girl was a freak. She's crazy. She was into crazy shit, and so was I. And you kind of awaken the dark arts in each other. So, okay, now you want to do threesomes. And then it turns to, well, why don't we just have an open relationship?
Okay, so now you open relationship. And that's when anybody can come through and shoot your dough. That's open season. That's hunting season. And that's when you're sharing your crops with the neighbors. And that's when it can get a little ornery when you look across that fence and see somebody else eating your vegetables. Onward.
Okay. So now we're shaking our heads like, oh, is this normal? Like, can we do this? How do we do this? And it practically ruined our relationship in the end of it. I was letting her...
Oh, man, I was almost hopeful for a second that you figured this out, that you had this. Let's keep going.
Sleep with other dudes. She got jealous and didn't want me to sleep with other girls. And then eventually, because of some deep-seated weird dark art that I had in a part of me, I started to like that she was sleeping with other guys. And she would film it, and we would watch it, and it was like a part of our relationship. But
wow. Wow, boy. That's crazy, man. I mean, you're in there then. You know, if you watching videos of other men with your lady, you know, that's very, I want to say Roman, but that's even past that. You're past Roman. Wow. Let's hear more.
Man, that's not healthy, and I knew that, but I just couldn't help it. You know, things progress. You just get bored with the regular shit. So, I don't know. It kind of ruined our relationship, I think, in the end. She won't admit to it, but I think that's what it was. But yeah, let me know what you think about that.
Oh, man, look, I'd be lying if I didn't say some of it sounded fun. You know, if it doesn't sound fun to be just, you know, crawling down that dirty staircase on your hands and knees. You know, and you know that each step below you, and you're going face first down that staircase, because when you get naughty like that, you face first. You know, as a man, you're going face first. You're taking all your feelings and all your senses. Your senses are all in your head and in your fingertips. So you're taking all those face first down the stairs into the darkness. And you know that the devil built that next step. You know, each step built by, carpenter Satan, or carpenter Lucifer. You know that each one of them steps getting warmer and naughtier, slipperier. But you keep going hand first on your knees down that staircase, and your nostrils and your brain filling up with scents, filling up with the scent of musky women, you know, in Best Westerns and, you know, in private account credit cards. You know, in cheap things of cocaine and, and people wearing fucking little outfits on their dick and all kinds of stuff like that. And you getting into some wildness, man. But you keep going, because that's the temptation. That's temptation, man. That's what that is. And look, I feel you. That can be fun, but that doesn't end well. That's the thing. That doesn't end well, or we would all probably be there. So now here you are, you know, you're a little bit burnt out. You sound like you got some issues from it. But I just say keep climbing, man. Turn around. Keep walking up. I'm not saying you don't have to always be good. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not saying God's going to save you. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is that it doesn't sound like the safest environment. And that's why the struggle is where it is. That's why the struggle is to stay in the healthy relationship, or even if it's, to try and make a relationship healthy. That's why we're battling it out with your spouse. That's why, because you fighting that front lines. You ain't out there eating buttholes off the internets, you know, of random strangers off the internets with their buttholes. You're not doing all of that, you know? And that's hard. It's hard not to do. It's hard not to do. All right, let's keep it cruising.
Yeah, hi, Theo. Hey, I just got done watching the 925 episode, and
thank you for checking that out.
As far as the kneeling at the national anthem, it just needs to stop. Entertainers have opinions. Football players need to play football. The NFL needs to play football and stay out of the political realm. Trump needs to shut his mouth and become a real president and stop talking a bunch of shit to people to get them stirred up. It's not helping anyone move forward.
I agree. I mean, just as much as the media does it, Trump does it as well. I mean, it's almost baffling where that comes from for him. I mean, it's just like a baby. You know, it's like watching a tall baby with Twitter. Onward.
So this needs to quit. It needs to end. People need to come together and fucking stand up at the anthem and move on. You know, we play football. That's what that's about. Entertainment. So I just wanted to pass that along. And
I appreciate that. What else, man? I got some more stuff about girls and dating. We're going to get into that next week. I feel like we've already been into a really long episode so far. We got a bunch of great calls, and more of them will be on next week. I'm probably going to get into some stuff about dating. I've been dealing with some stuff in this therapy I've been going to. I've been dealing with some stuff about my issues lie when I'm unable to connect in a relationship. You know, I even get caught up with, I got intimate issues, you know, when it comes to being in love and getting, you know, a comfortable, consistent level of intimacy. That stuff, That's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for a lot of people. Dude, I'm telling you this. I'm sitting in a doctor's office the other day, and I'm talking to him about something that's okay. And I mentioned this, just in passing, just about I was going to a therapist. And out of the blue, this man closed the door, and then he started telling me the problems he was having at home. And this is a doctor. This is a doctor talking to me about the problems he been having, issues he having in his bedroom. And so, man, it's just they got people's out there dealing with that. People out there dealing. We afflicted, man. We're all afflicted. And that's okay. We've all got a problem, man. But you going to be out there hiding it? Or you going to be out there just saying what the problem is and how do you think we can solve it? Because you could wear the disguise if you want. You could put on the disguise. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. That's the disguise, man. That's your Halloween, bro. That's your Michael Myers outfit you wear every day. Or you could take off the mask, man. You could take off your mask and see if daddy recognizes you. You could take off that mask and show up. Show up with no mask on, no outfit, no costume. Show up to whomever, to your boss, to your spouse, and let them know what's going on. Let them know what's popping off inside of you. Be vulnerable. Sometimes you got to show up and be vulnerable, man.